Good. Try that again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the town of Waukesha. It is October 10th, 2019 at about 6:45 p.m. This is a joint plan commission and town board meeting of the town of Waukesha. We were scheduled to begin at 6:30. We're running about 15 minutes late, and I apologize for that. Just by a quick explanation, some of you may have entered the room. We were having a joint review board meeting pertaining to tax incremental district number 1 for the town of Waukesha. That meeting began at 6 o'clock. We ran just a little bit long, and then we had some good technicians readying us for the meeting. So thank you all for being here. We're called to order. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you would rise and join me, please. A roll call, please, of the Plan Commission and then the Town Board.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Fuller?
Here.
Chairman Fisher?
Here.
Supervisor Stigler?
Here.
Supervisor Radke?
Here.
Supervisor German?
Here.
Supervisor Durr?
Here. And we would note for the record, Plan Commission members Cisney and Flanagan are absent this evening. We'd note that the agenda was posted and distributed to all news media requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on and posted on or before Friday, October 4th, 2019. Administrator Nicholas, can you confirm that's true?
I confirm.
Okay, we have next an opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone who would like to address the Town Board and Town Plan Commission, you're welcome at this time to approach the microphone in the center of the room there. Please give us your name and your address and get real close to the microphone. We're anxious to hear what you have to say. Citizens' comments. That quieted the room. Okay. Assuming there are no citizens' comments, we will move on then to item 6, which is the notification of the public hearing, which I will read into the record. Notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing involving the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Town Board will be held on Thursday, October 10th, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Town Hall, located at W250 S3567 Center Road. Such hearing shall also be for the purpose of considering the adoption of a project plan for a tax incremental finance district in accordance with Wisconsin Stats 66.1105. The proposed plan includes projects that may include, but are not limited to, street improvement costs, financing costs, and other related costs. Project costs may also include developer incentives made by the town to owners, lessees, or developers of land within the proposed district. I will declare the public hearing open. At this point in time, I believe we're going to begin with the presentation, so there's some information disseminated. The town of Waukesha has retained Trilogy Consulting, LLC, to advise and consult us on this matter. And we're pleased to welcome Christy is here this evening, and I believe you're going to open us with a presentation, if that's correct. So please proceed. Maybe we can even kill the lights a little bit on that side of the room.
Okay, thank you. My name is Christy DeMaster. I'm with Trilogy Consulting. We're a small firm that works with cities, towns, and villages across Wisconsin on a variety of financial and planning related matters. So I've been doing this type of work for about 22 years now. So I wanted to just start by explaining what tax incremental finance is, because I realize not everybody works with this all the time. There's a couple of terms that are important to remember. TIF, or tax incremental finance, is the financing tool that gives local governments like towns and cities and villages the opportunity to invest in projects that within a specified area that are designed to improve the property values of that area. TID stands for Tax Incremental District, and that basically means the area within which those types of investments are made, and it has to have a defined and adopted boundary as part of this process. Going to the next slide, this is kind of a graphic that illustrates how this concept works. So you see the blue bars along the bottom there. When you create a tax incremental district, there's already some property value in that district that is known as the base value. All the taxes collected on that base property value continue to go to normal town budget, school district budget, technical college, and county budget, and so on and so forth. So that does not change. The idea here is that the investments in the district increase the property value, and any taxes on that increase in property value are invested in the district. So instead of going to, at least temporarily, instead of going to the county or the school district, et cetera, they are going into a tax incremental district fund and used for things to improve property values in the district. There is a limit to how long a TIF district can be open under Wisconsin law, and so in the particular case of the one we're talking about here, the maximum amount of time that it can be in place is for 20 years. So once that 20 years is up, then the district would have to be closed. But the idea is that in the meantime, you've created additional property value and tax revenues for all of the taxing entities. I just want to mention, too, that properties within a TIF district pay the same tax rate as any other properties within the local government. So there's no change in the tax rates or anything like that. It strictly is that, you know, the investment and that increase in value is what generates the revenues. So going to the next slide, there's some key requirements under Wisconsin law for when and how you can create a tax incremental district. It has to be a situation where the improvement in property value would not occur but for the investment. The town has to show that the benefits of the proposal outweigh the costs. In other words, that the increase in tax revenues and any other benefits such as jobs and income would be more than the costs of the improvements in the district. Similarly, that they have to show that it's economically feasible so that the improvement in property value will pay for the things that the town is spending money on in the district, that the project costs are directly related to improving property values, and then finally it has to be consistent with the town's master plan. This slide shows the proposed location and the existing zoning for this district. So properties shown in yellow are currently zoned residential. Anything shown in red is zoned for commercial uses, and anything zoned or shown in purple is zoned for industrial. This is the zoning. It doesn't necessarily match what's actually there. Like, for example, within the red area, there are some properties that are single-family residential, but they're zoned commercial. If you want to go to the next one. This shows the planned or proposed uses for this area. So everything that's kind of a pink cross-hatching is mixed use, so it could be commercial or residential. The purple, again, is still industrial. So, and I also should mention that the town is in the process of updating its comprehensive plan too, and so this reflects what's being discussed. All right. This map, this is not a map that's in the project plan itself. I think it's a little easier to see because it doesn't have the land uses laying over it, but the arrows are pointing to some segments of streets that the town would like to improve and expand upon. So you'll see Industrial Lane there. The section of it that's in the town is fairly narrow. There's no curb and gutter or storm sewer there. And then there's also a small side street there. So part of the intention for this is to be able to upgrade that to a wider street with curb and gutter and storm sewer. If you can go to the next one. So the idea here is to do things that will help improve property values in this area. And the TIF district, or the TID, just provides a tool that the town can use to do as opportunities arise for doing that. So with the reconstruction of Industrial Lane, that is something that the town would borrow some funds for. Part of it could be paid for with the TIF district. Part of it would be paid for just through the town's normal road program budget. The other big piece of this is anticipated to be development incentives for property owners or developers who want to do something with their property, whether it be expanding an existing commercial business or whether it be potentially redevelopment of some of these properties. But again, I want to stress that this would be something that would have to be brought forward by a property owner, not something the town is going to initiate. And this would be done on a pay-as-you-go basis, so the town would not be borrowing for these incentives. These would be something that would be provided to property owners once some improvements are made to the property and there's additional tax revenue coming into the TID fund. So next, and I just want to talk a little bit more about how that would work. And there are other communities that do these, and there's a kind of a process and procedure in general. So this would be, again, as I said, a situation where if somebody wanted to do something with their property, they could come to the town and request assistance from the town through the TIF district. The town would have to evaluate that and determine a couple things. Number one, as I said earlier, it has to be a situation where the expansion or redevelopment or so on would not happen but for TIF assistance. So the town would need to evaluate the feasibility of the project and determine whether there really is a need there for some assistance to make it happen. And the town would also have to look at how much property value improvement would occur and how much, based on that, how much assistance the town could provide. The town would also be required under state law to sign a development agreement with the property owner or developer before any assistance could be provided. The next thing would be that the owner or the developer would do the project, make the improvements to the property. And then once additional tax revenue starts coming into the TIF district fund, that would be essentially reimbursed to that owner or property developer, depending on the agreement that's reached between the town and the developer. Within the TID project plan, there is a budget in there for what we think the costs of some of these things might be, or what the TIF district could provide. A big part of that is a reconstruction of Industrial Lane, again, that is anticipated to be half TIF expense, half regular town budget expense. And then we've also got a budgeted amount in there for development incentives. And the amount of that would really just depend on the timing and the amount of any new improvements that take place in the district. So this, again, is just kind of a graphic of what we're anticipating for increases in property value, and this is just based on potential that looking at property values in this particular area as compared to nearby areas, both commercial and industrial. Currently, there's about 19.2 million of equalized property value total within this area, and we're anticipating, I think conservatively, that property values could increase by about 11.7 million, which would be about a 61% increase. So that dark blue shows that base value. And again, taxes on that base value would continue to go to each of the taxing entities as per normal. Anything on that light blue would go to the TIF district to be used to pay for project expenses. This shows the projected revenues for the district. So ultimately, if the district improves in value by 11.7 million, that would generate about $136,000 per year that could be used for things like development incentives or paying debt service on road reconstruction costs. You'll see that we don't have anything coming in the first couple of years, and that's just the timing lag between when something, building goes up and then when the town gets to actually collect revenues, tax revenues from that. We're not anticipating anything happening probably until 2021, again, trying to be conservative. And then just speaking to the economic feasibility of this, the blue bars show revenues coming in, the red bars show cash going out, the green line shows cash balance within the TIF district fund. Again, there wouldn't be any revenues coming in until probably the third or fourth year, so not much happening until then. The big lines in 2023 you know, we had to put something in the project plan as an estimated time frame for different things happening. But those big lines there would represent the year when the town borrows for the industrial lane reconstruction and then spends costs on that project. So the gist of this, the summary, is that we're anticipating that this would be positive cash balance the whole time, just because of the nature of it. The town would not be spending money unless there's revenues coming in. And we do anticipate that it could pay off about 2 years before the maximum end life of the district. Just a couple things I want to just reiterate again about this whole thing, this whole project, is that adoption of the TID project plan by itself doesn't commit the town to any expenditures. There would still have to be additional approvals for anything to happen, whether that be budgeting through the town budget for industrial lane reconstruction. Obviously, the town would have to approve any development agreements. There would be site plan reviews and other approvals. Those are just some examples. Again, the development incentives would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis at the request of a property owner or developer and would only be approved if they are supported by tax increment revenues. And again, actual expenditures will depend on the timing and amount of improvements that would occur in the district, depending on property owners wanting to do something with their property. And the town is not going to require anyone to sell or develop or redevelop their properties. The adoption process for this includes several steps under state law. We're holding the public hearing tonight on this issue. There's a draft project plan that has been put together. It's in a draft format as of yet. The next step would be for the Plan Commission to approve and adopt that project plan, which I believe is anticipated for November. And then the town board would have to approve the creation of the district. And then the last approval step would be a joint review board that has members from the county and the school district and the technical college district. Is that any questions, or do you want to take questions now?
Yeah, I think just a quick thing. Thank you very much for the presentation. You can just sit down for a quick minute and we'll move forward. I think, and thank you, fine presentation. You mentioned at the end a little bit, a couple of important things to emphasize. That right now the document is in draft form. Again, when some of you may have walked in, you observed the first meeting of the Joint Review Board at the table that was in the center of the room here. This process allows for public participation. Some of it tonight, there's additional public participation. And I think Administrator Nicholas is just going to spend a very quick minute and give you a little bit of a calendar of some dates and activities certain going forward, if you would, please.
Okay, on November 14th, we're going to bring forth our comprehensive land use amendment. We are also at the same time going to bring the project plan to the Plan Commission for action. On December 12th is when the town board would approve or have action on the plan that was approved by the Plan Commission. The Joint Review Board is set for December 19th at 9 a.m. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much then. We'll proceed with the public hearing. Just a couple of ground rules or guidelines for that. Those of you who come up to the microphone here, if you would please give us your name and address and get up real close to that microphone. We want to hear what you have to say. This meeting is being recorded. Some people may be watching it live on the town's YouTube channel. It'll also be in a library that either people who are not here tonight or not watching it, or any of you can go back and take a look at it. So we want to make sure we hear everything you have to say. We will allow people to speak more than one time if you're not repetitive, but we're going to give everybody a chance to speak once before we double back to that. Kathy's kind of prompted me. I believe there are slips in the back of the room for people who would like to speak. If you're going to speak and you don't have one of those, please pick it up and put the information on there. We'd like to have you hand that to the clerk when you come forward to speak. We want to have an accurate record of who's here and who has participated. The comments certainly are in order. You can ask questions. What we will probably do, just for efficiency and organization, we may gather some of those questions and then answer them after some of them are grouped. Christy DeMaster will attempt to answer some of those if they're answerable. If they're not, we'll try to get the answers after that. So that said, anybody who's got a slip filled out and would like to come forward, please do so at this time. Everybody's so polite.
She answered all their questions.
I said that was a good presentation. It was even beyond that kind of a description, wasn't it? Okay, well, I mean, we certainly want to encourage all of you to follow this process, come for future meetings of the town board, the town plan commission. If there are no other comments, I'm assuming it's appropriate to close the public hearing at this time. There is a comment. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Well, Sandy Hom, West 230, South 3827 Milky Way Road. I'm familiar with the process, and I know that it's part of another bigger process, and I just want to let you know that I'm totally in favor of it and encourage you to proceed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? I'll ask one more time, and if there's no one else, then I'll declare the public hearing closed and we'll proceed with our agenda. Thank you very much for your presentation. You're all welcome to stay for more and probably here for other purposes, but thank you. Okay, item 7 then is a discussion and possible action on the off-premise temporary sign request for Jeff Panosian, owner, Waukesha Storage LLC, located at W271 South 3016 Merrill Hills Road, tax key WAKT 1327998. This will be a discussion by the Plan Commission and Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission and possible action by the Town Board. And I'm assuming Planner Malarkey, you've got a presentation. Good evening, Mr. Panosian. Let's let Planner Malarkey start with his presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself from this part of the meeting.
Okay. You are, just then for the record, Supervisor Stigler asked to recuse himself from this part of the meeting, so we'll certainly honor your request. Okay, Planner Malarkey, do you want to proceed?
Yeah,
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the petitioner is requesting approval of a 4-foot by 8-foot double-sided freestanding sign. The sign's intended to provide direction to Waukesha Storage, which is at the on the overhead here. You can see it's just west of Merrill Hills Road. You may recall that a similar issue came forward last year. We actually did amend the zoning ordinance to allow off-premise signs in the town of Waukesha under certain circumstances, and I'll get into the details of that in a little bit. But what he's asking for is an off-premise sign that'll actually not be located on the property for the business itself, but it'll be located at the northeast corner of Merrill Hills Road and Sunset Drive, just to the southeast. The sign itself will be constructed of pressure-treated plywood or something similar, wrapped in vinyl. It'll be supported by 2 4-inch diameter poles between the sign faces. The top of the sign will be 12 feet high, as measured from grade. So in terms of off-premise signs for the town of Waukesha, they do require a recommendation by the Plan Commission and the Town Board, so that's different from normal signs that just require Town Board approval, so this does require Plan Commission input as well. And so the 2 circumstances you can do off-premise signs in the town are when 2 adjacent parcel owners will share the sign, so basically they're side by side, the sign would be on one property or the other, and they'd share that. Or the provision that got added last year is that when the road that fronts the use or the uses has been or will within 1 year be converted from a through road to a dead end as the result of a road improvement project, you could also do an off-premise sign. So as we know, Merrill Hills Road is dead-ended now, or will be dead-ended, and so that is that through traffic has been cut off. It will be cul-de-sac. And so this is basically a temporary measure to allow an off-premise sign to let everybody know, hey, we're still here, gives the property owner more time for marketing and other solutions that would draw attention to the business. And so this also an off-premise sign in this situation also requires all parties, the sign owner and also the landowner here, to enter into a written agreement with respect to the sign's use, its location, its maintenance, modification, replacement, and its ultimate removal. The actual written agreement would be recorded by a deed restriction after approval by the town board and the town attorney. So that is precisely what's being requested. The sign itself looks like this. Again, it's 4 feet tall, 8 feet wide. The top would be 12 feet off the ground. It would be double-sided. The purpose of the sign is basically to direct traffic or advertise the business, the same as the existing signage on the site itself. So we do have a few provisions for this type of off-premise sign. It can't exceed 64 square feet in area per side. It is only 32 square feet. It shall serve the same purpose as an on-premise sign, and it does. It shall be located within 1/2 mile of the property. It is actually 0.28 miles from the property itself. Limited to a duration of 5 years and shall not be renewed. It's allowed in any zoning district provided the location of the sign is not within a residential subdivision. And so it checks all those boxes. It is allowed per our current ordinance. Obviously, you can take a look at the sign and provide input on the sign itself. The sign will not be illuminated. It will be located outside of the vision corner, the vision setback, and at least 10 feet away from all rights of way. If the Plan Commission chooses to recommend approval of the sign to the town board, I have prepared a series of conditions, basically that it follows all ordinances, it complies with the sign construction and maintenance standards, that it's removed within 5 years from issuance of the permit, shall not be reviewed or renewed by the town, that the town board and town attorney review the agreement that's recorded with the Register of Deeds, and it shall be constructed and installed as presented tonight.
Okay, thank you, and welcome, Mr. Panosian. Did Planner Malarkey do a good job of capturing the essence of your request?
Yes.
Okay, do you have anything else that you would like to share with us at this point in time?
Just that I think it'll help my customers and help increase safety for traffic when people are coming, to make it easy for them to know exactly where to turn to get to the facility, given that there's been a change in the access.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward here, we can open this up to discussion by the Plan Commission and the Town Board. We're actually doing one thing as we proceed here. I've asked Attorney Macy to take a look. I believe our ordinance may require us to have 4 members of the Plan Commission to make a recommendation in order to move forward. We have but 3 here tonight. Supervisor Stigler, who's a member of the Plan Commission, recused himself. So I think if I'm doing the numbers right, we're down to Supervisor White, Supervisor Fuller, and myself. So he's researching that for a minute. I think we could at least continue with the discussion, but we're, as we speak, trying to make a determination whether we can act on this tonight or whether we may have to hold it over. So let's, I guess, proceed at least with the discussion part of it while we're researching that. So open that up to Plan Commission, Town Board members for discussion. Somebody help us out, we're filling time, right?
Sean, where does it say in the sign ordinance, I'm looking at the sections that you asked me to look at, or that you reference in your report, says all, is this all signs that need permission have Plan Commission permit, recommendation?
Just off-premises signs, and I'll give you the section in a second here.
I'm in F, I'm in 6.
42-41F is,
I'm in it.
you're in that.
And number 6 is off-premise signs, 1 through 5, and then it says approved per section 4241. Is that what you're wanting me to go to? 4241B?
Oh, it's in the definitions, I'm sorry. So it's preceding that, and the definition for off-premises sign includes the recommendation by plan commission, approval by town board.
And then are you familiar with the chairman's reference to town plan commission 4 members?
And do you remember that off the top of your head? It's under definition of the quorum, and I think it's under plan commission proceedings. I don't remember that off the top of my head.
I can take a look. Yeah, try that.
I'm in plan commission under 2-182. I don't see it there.
Is that the definition of quorum?
Yes.
That's meetings of the town board is 2-50.
So is the question whether or not it's got to be a majority of the board or just a majority of the present members? Majority of the board. The plan commission.
I believe it's couched in those terms, if we can find it, which would require 4.
Is your concern, Mr. Chairman, a specific reference, or that we've lost our quorum because Mr. Stiegler is stepped down? Those are 2 different issues.
I understand that. I think it requires 4 votes.
Okay.
Yeah, under the Plan Commission, 2-182, parent C, record, the Plan Commission shall
There you
keep
go.
a written record of its proceedings to include all actions taken, a copy of which shall be filed with the town clerk, treasurer. 4 members shall constitute a quorum, but all actions shall require the affirmative approval of a majority of all members of the commission.
So it's 2-182, paren C.
Got it.
So it would appear to me as though we could continue the discussion on this, but I don't think the Plan Commission could act this evening. Would you agree?
Well, the actions to, that's an interesting conundrum, because it says all actions to make the recommendation require the affirmative vote of a majority of all members. You just won't succeed in doing that with a 3-0 vote.
Correct.
So it would go to the board with not
Without a recommendation.
a favorable recommendation of the town board. You certainly can table it, but
I guess my preference would be, and with an apology to Mr. Panosian, I guess I would prefer to kind of play it straight down the line and table this evening and impose on you with apologies to come back at the next meeting.
Sure, no, that's no problem.
Well,
So-
why wouldn't it be able to come to the town board without a recommendation?
Well, I guess it certainly could, but if you're asking my opinion, I don't like setting that precedent. That's that simple.
at this point, the chairman or any of the other members of the plan commission who are still sitting could make a motion to table, I suppose.
I also move.
I'll second that then.
Does a motion to table pass without a quorum?
Well, it says we can't take any action. I guess you can look at the definition of that. I think moving the table is not taking action. I guess I'll make that ruling for a minute to a motion to table that's approved is not taking action. So, any further discussion on that? Then plan commissioners will vote on the motion to table. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, the vote is 3-0.
And I want to clarify one thing, Mr. Chairman, because this confusion came up before. We have not lost the quorum because the plan commission member is still in the audience. And the courts have ruled that if he's present and voting abstain,
Yeah.
that's different than leaving the room. If he leaves the room, we've lost the quorum, if someone calls that.
That may be an issue for a past day and for another day, but for the moment, we're finished with this item with apologies. We'll get this back on the calendar. Sorry, Mr. Panosian, but that'll be back on for November, what's our next meeting date? November 14th. Okay, we're
All right,
moving on.
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. Item 8, discussion, possible action on Sandy Campbell's request for a certified survey map of the property located at W273 S6201 River Road, tax ID WAKT 14209970001. And Planner Malarkey, are you going to walk us through this matter, please?
Sure. So this was before us last month. They were requesting a rezone of the property along with a certified survey map to create one lot. And last month, the Plan Commission and the board did approve the rezoning on September 12th. It's still pending county board approval, so it's at the county board level. The rezone was also pending on approval of the actual certified survey map. The certified survey map was conceptual last month, and so now the final version of it is in front of us. In general, it's in pretty good shape. There's a few technical comments that have not been addressed on the actual certified survey map, and I'll just kind of quickly run down those. Again, the property, the 9.928 acre lot plus the lot west of the Mander line will be rezoned to RE from A1. It's the lot shape and size is consistent with the zoning. They have updated the certified survey map to include the primary environmental corridor delineation, the wetland delineation, additional soil borings, et cetera. Just a couple comments. The zoning that's noted on the map is noted as A1. Any references to zoning should be removed from the map itself. Previously, the signature block for the county was missing. That has been added. There is one thing that Engineer Janelli brought up in his staff report. He was not here last time, but mentioned that normally in our land division ordinance, we require that any parcel that's less than 20 acres be part of the CSM. The remnant parcel on this property is 63 acres. It's technically okay to leave that off the certified survey map, provided a waiver is granted by the Plan Commission and Board. So you will have to take action on that and make mention of the waiver being granted. The one item that Engineer Janelli asked to be added to the certified survey map that's not on there is notation that this parcel was part of a greater parcel or a larger parcel so that we can track it for subdivision purposes in case there's further redivisions down the line. So the Waukesha County does have a few comments as well on this one. One of the comments that they had initially going forward was that they had, in terms of their county park plan on the east side of the Fox River, they had planned for some acquisition of parkland, a trail system that would come down the river. They'd encourage the property owner to potentially develop an outlot for that piece of the property that wouldn't have to be deeded to the county, wouldn't have to be sold to the county at this time, but basically tied to say that if you sell the lot, you'd also sell the outlot with it, or you wouldn't sell them independently. You could deed the outlot to the county or sell it to the county, but they have to remain together if you're not going to do that. The petitioner has chosen not to do that, so that is not on the certified survey map at this time. That was a recommendation from the county, but not necessarily a requirement. What it will mean, though, is that the trail connection probably will not be able to happen on the east side of Fox River. It would have to come out to the county road in that instance. There's a couple of notes that the wetland delineation is missing the source. The floodplain on the map isn't field delineated. It's basically referenced in the FEMA maps itself. And the rest are very minor technical comments from the county. So I guess the point I'd like to make, and Engineer Janelli may have additional comments, that it's largely technical comments that are outstanding for the certified survey map at this time. If the Plan Commission chooses to approve the certified survey map, I do have a series of conditions. One is that all the technical comments from Town Plan Commission, Town Board, Town Engineer, Town Planner, and all reviewing objecting bodies be met, and that all signatures are obtained prior to signature by the Town of Waukesha, and that the certified survey map approval is contingent on the rezoning approval from Waukesha County to rezone from A1 to RE. Chris, did you have anything to add, or is that pretty much do it?
Yeah, I think you summed it up very nicely. I have a few technical comments from my review that was dated September 26th. There was a new recent submittal, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet. I think that came earlier today, which Planner Malarkey informed me has some of my comments already addressed already. None of my comments were all that hugely critical or would change anything, and just notations for the most part.
Okay, thank you to both of you. Is the petitioner, or representative of the petitioner here tonight? Yes. Why don't you just come forward, if you will? Just introduce yourself to us again, please.
My name is Diane Zakshevsky, and my address would be West 273 South 6201 River Road. I'm a real estate broker. I represent both the seller and the buyer. Seller is Mr. Sandy Campbell, and buyer Mr. John Seibel. So I am representing both of them. Now I would like to make a comment that to Mr. Janelli, that yes, you just received the latest, and I do have, if you are interested in the minor additions that refer to the previous one, which was dated September 20th. And these are, I guess I call them minor, but I do have them if you need them. And that was per the county's request to put them on the CSM. So here I am. How can I help you?
Okay, thank you. We'll hang on a minute and we'll see. We've had the presentations, discussion by the Plan Commission and the Town Board. Is it pretty straightforward?
So
Go
the
ahead.
differences between what we had from September and what we received today were just the comments from Engineer Janelli's letter?
Responding to some of the county comments as well. But I will point out, not all the technical comments have been addressed yet. So there's still, even if approved tonight, there's still some additional things that have to be added to the survey map. There are.
May I reference the changes from the one I have here dated October 8th to the previous one? So on page, may I, or Is that important?
Sure,
On
go
pa-
ahead.
Thank you. On page 1 of the CSM, the difference compared to the September 20th CSM, if you will look to the left, we're calling out outlot 1 on the September 20th, corrected to be lot 1 on the October 8th. In addition to that, there's just simply a name called Campbell 2006 Trust that identifies this CSM. On page 2, there's an additional remark to the right of the River Road that says, quote, approved access location from County Highway 1 for Waukesha County DPW. That was added because it is an approved access driveway. Another addition is to the left of River Road on the far bottom. There's a note that the county wanted, which states, quote, note, any land below the ordinary high water mark of the lake or a navigable stream is subject to public trust in navigable water that is established under Article 9, Section 1 of the state Constitution. All right, then if I may, page 3 of 7. Page 3 of 7 is an addition, and what that addition is stating the different soil types. And that's it.
Okay, I'm at the minute, and we'll go for further discussion by the Plan Commission and Town Board. I'm going to suggest for a minute, and there may be other questions, but I'm assuming it would be appropriate for the Plan Commission if the Plan Commission is inclined to act on this matter and inclined to make a recommendation for approval of the certified survey map to the town board, that such a motion would incorporate the conditions that Planner Malarkey put into his staff review letter dated September 30th, 2019, that he reviewed for us. And I'm thinking the motion would appropriately include addressing and resolving all of the technical issues that Engineer Janelli raised. I mean, I appreciate the discussion here, but some of that's a little bit beyond what we're trying to do here tonight. Anybody, and I'm looking to our staff people, would that be an appropriate motion if we want to do that? Attorney Macy, Engineer Janelli, Planner Malarkey, is that an appropriate way to proceed?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, I appreciate the changes that were made, but there still are a few outstanding comments that the county have and that we have, but I think we can address them, and they're not substantive changes that's going to necessarily change what the Plan Commission and board are looking for.
So all we're saying is we don't know at this point in time. We're not going to spend more time to try to sift through that and see which ones have and haven't been addressed. I mean, that obligation, if we were to proceed on that obligation for you to fulfill that remains. Other questions, comments, discussion from the Plan Commission or the Town Board? That goes to the Plan Commission. We're now 4 strong. Are you prepared to act on a motion for approval incorporating the conditions that Planner Malarkey set forth and satisfying the technical issues raised by Engineer Janelli? Someone prepared to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to recommend with the staff approval with Malarkey's September 30th notes and also Engineer Jelly's notes. I recommend that for approval.
Okay, is there a second to the motion to recommend that to the Town Board?
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion is by Supervisor White, Commissioner White, seconded by Supervisor Stigler for approval. Does everyone on the Plan Commission understand the motion? Further discussion? Okay, then we'll proceed to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. So now we'll move to possible action by the Town Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to accept the recommendation for approval from the Plan Commission with the conditions set forth by Planner Malarkey and satisfying the technical issues that have been raised by Engineer Janelli. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Sir, may I ask, please, what is the next step now for the seller to proceed and get approval of the CSM?
So the next step is to address, we'll get you a copy of our staff reports if you don't
Okay.
already, you should have these, I believe.
I have the September 30th ones.
Right, and then the county also has additional comments that have to be addressed. Once those are done, and you get all the signatures from the county and the city on the certified survey map, the town can sign it, and it'll be done. It gets recorded with the county register of deeds, and then the lot's created.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, we're on to item 9, discussion and possible action on accessory building request from Jeffrey Nailson. I don't know whether you're present. Did I get close on the name?
You hit it right on the money.
All right, located at W255 S4681 Oakdale Drive, tax key WAKT 137999821. As before, this is discussion by the Plan Commission Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission, possible action by the Town Board. Planner Malarkey, are you going to introduce this item?
I will,
please?
thank you. So the property itself is 1.78 acres. It's zoned R1 residential. It's at the northwest corner of Lonsdale and County Trunk Highway XX, Oakdale Road. What they're requesting is the construction of an accessory building for personal storage. The building would be just under 1,200 square feet in size, approximately 54.5 feet by 22 feet. The height, it would be 26 foot 7 inches as measured from peak to grade. What the petitioner is proposing is that the materials would match the house. There'd be brown cement board siding with a tan trim that would match the brick color of the home and a shingled roof with an 812 pitch. The garage doors would also match the home, and the applicant has provided color images of the proposed building itself. So in the town of Waukesha, any building over 600 square feet needs Plan Commission and board approval, and also any deviation from the height requires town Plan Commission and board approval. Normally, 18 feet is the maximum height for accessory buildings. This one is 26 feet 7 inches tall. The building location, the number of buildings in the site, the setbacks, offsets, et cetera, that all meets the zoning requirements. What you need to be concerned about tonight is looking at the appearance and compatibility and determining whether that's a compatible match with the home, and then the height issue. As I mentioned, 18 feet is the typical allowed height for accessory buildings. We do allow a provision in the code that says you can exceed that up to 10 feet in height, provided that offsets and setbacks are increased 2 feet for every 1 inch or 1 foot of additional height. This is 9 feet, or a little over, almost 9 feet in height over 18 feet. So that requires an additional 18 feet of setbacks and offsets, so meaning at least 38 feet, because 20 is normally required. 48 is proposed, so they're exceeding what's required for offsets and setbacks. The petitioner has also provided pictures of the site to show the surroundings in terms of context and where the neighbors and property lines are located as well. So if the Plan Commission chooses to approve the conditional use, I've prepared a series of 8 conditions, standard conditions that it's got to be consistent with what's been presented tonight. The height cannot exceed 26 feet 7 inches, otherwise comply with the height requirements. All requirements of the R1 zoning district shall be compatible with the existing home. That a deed restriction be recorded on the property in a form approved by the town attorney, giving notice that the accessory building is for residential purposes only, that they'll obtain all appropriate permits, and that all fees are reimbursed to the town.
Okay, thank you, Planner Malarkey. Mr. Nayland, did he capture the essence of what your request is?
Yes.
You have anything further that you would like to add or share with us? Okay. Then we go to the discussion here, Plan Commission Town Board. Planner Malarkey basically directed our attention to two issues. Maybe we ought to take these one at a time, but the appearance and compatibility with the existing house and so forth, we need to address that and make a determination of whether or not the objective has been fulfilled. Does anybody have a comment on appearance, building materials, appearance, compatibility? We'll take the height thing next, but first appearance and compatibility. Any thoughts about that? Go ahead.
I just want to make a note with that, since your house has the brick, a light brown.
Correct.
And you're planning putting a cement board siding to get as close as you can to that color of that brick on your home, correct?
Correct, yeah.
One other question, since doesn't pertain to that, but your home right now that you live in, is that an 812 pitch on your home right now
Correct.
to match your garage? Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, maybe to put another way, does anybody have any issues or concerns or questions with the appearance or compatibility? Okay, then let's go to the height issue. If everybody understood what Planner Malarkey laid out on this, this is an increase in height from roughly 18 feet to 26'7", was that correct, or thereabouts?
Yeah, just under 9 feet.
Just
Of
under
increase over 18.
9 feet, and again, we heard he's matching the pitch on the existing house. It is, with the additional setback, it's compliant with the ordinance. What about the additional height? Does anybody have some thoughts about that?
I guess my question is why? I mean, what do you need the extra height for?
Storage. We have a boat, and on the trailer, it's an oversized load, and she's 13'9". 14-foot door, I'd get 3 inches.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything to ask or say about the height of the proposed structure?
I just have a question, I guess, to Malarkey, I guess. Being as so height, do we have any maybe additions for shrubbery and that kind of stuff that we could put on this if we wanted to?
Well, there's nothing in the accessory building section that necessarily talks about landscaping, though you could certainly suggest it if that's the way you felt. I don't know, though, if that's going to do much. The height is what the height is, and so you're going to see the roof, whether there's landscaping around it or not. I guess that might help break up the wall. You know, if there was some landscaping along the foundation, that might make the wall appear less massive, if that's what you're asking about. So you could certainly suggest it, but I don't know how visible this is from the surroundings as it is. The petitioner has provided some photographs here that kind of show where the building is going to be located in relation to the surroundings. So I don't know, maybe the petitioner can speak to how visible this is and whether that might make a difference.
The neighbor to the west, he's got 2 rows of adult trees, evergreens. He'll never see the building. The neighbor to the east towards Oakdale, we actually set it back past his building so he wouldn't affect his sunset or anything. So actually his building is between that and the road, his garage. That's the lower right building there.
I will pull this
There you go.
this up, and then you can get a better feel.
Yeah.
So the location of the building is gonna be here,
Right.
right where my cursor's moving. And so you're saying there's evergreens here that are already in place.
Right.
What about landscaping here and here?
Well, there's a big pine in the upper northwest corner there, and there's some apple trees over there. And John, the neighbor here, he's close to 250 feet away and actually in a higher elevation than us.
And this is essentially behind the garage, which is
Yeah,
located
if you
here.
drew a line from his south end of the garage to the trees, we purposely set it back that way.
North of that.
Correct, north of that. So it wouldn't be seen by their living room windows or,
How about the property to the north? There's a tree here, there's some trees
be
here.
there, and then there's,
They have landscaping southwest of their house.
correct, and then a couple of apple trees. You can hardly see them, it's a shadow by the 9.97 right there.
Here? Or
And
here?
to the right,
Here,
yeah,
yeah, I see
yeah.
they don't have leaves. at the-
Yeah, they're probably 15 feet high.
So the question still stands, though. Commissioner White suggested or thought, is landscaping a possibility? Sure, it certainly can be suggested. It's nothing that's required of the ordinance, but it's something that you can discuss if you feel strongly about it.
Given all the circumstances of this request, the specific circumstances, I don't have a problem with the request for the additional height. Anybody else?
I guess I did at first, but after seeing the topography overhead view here, I guess I understand more what the neighbors are and what they're gonna be looking at, so I guess I can go along with it.
Is the Plan Commission prepared to take action on this if there's no further discussion?
I make a motion to approve the outbuilding for Jeffrey Nielsen.
And that's
With all the conditions. set
including
forth.
the recommended conditions from the plan of
Exactly,
malarkey?
yes.
Okay, is there a second to Supervisor Stigler's motion?
I'd second that.
Okay, so the motion by Supervisor Stigler, second by Commissioner Fuller to approve the request for the accessory building from Jeffrey Nielsen, and that would be a recommendation of the town board with the planner's recommended conditions. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 4-0. Town board, what would you like to do with this request?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission for the accessory building for Jeffrey Nielsen.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German. Any further discussion? The town board, assuming everyone understands the motion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0 on the town board. Thank you, Mr. Nayland.
No, thank you.
Item 10, discussion possible action on the site plan of operation request from Sean Sullivan, agent for Action Power Sports, located at S14 W22605 Coral Drive, tax key WAKT 1298999. This again will be a discussion by the Plan Commission, possible action by the town, discussion by the Plan Commission, Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission, and possible action by the Town Board. We have a representative here. You want to just introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll let Planner Malarkey proceed with his report.
Yeah, Sean Sullivan with Design to Construct, obviously representing Action Power Sports, and I'll let Sean take it away and fill in any blanks or questions if needed.
Very good.
So Action Power Sports has operated on the site, on this particular site in the town since 2017. The existing building is 43,000 square feet. Property is zone B3, general business. It's almost 15 acres in size. Action Power Sports sells and repairs motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, water sport vehicles, snowmobiles, and also sells parts, clothing, and accessories. What the petitioner is requesting is an amendment to the existing site plan of operation to construct an additional building on the site. If you look on the overhead, the building in pure white is the existing structure, and the proposed new accessory building is behind it. The new building would be for the sole purpose of storage of inventory. There would be no retail out of that building. It's basically a warehouse storage building for the purpose of the sales in the main building. Basically the changes to the site would be the new building. The pavement here is slightly extended to get access to a new garage door. none of the wooded area on the site is going to be disturbed as part of the expansion. The proposed accessory building and the changes to the site are consistent with all zoning requirements for the town of Waukesha. The plan of operation, as I mentioned, the sale of the vehicles and merchandise I just mentioned. The maximum number of employees is 40. That's not changing. Hours of operation are not changing under the current site plan of operation. And then the estimated start completion dates for this particular project, starting spring 2020 and completing by summer of 2020. One thing I think we need to pay attention to, or at least discuss, is the architecture of the building. This is the elevation that faces Coral Drive, and so that's not a very busy street, not heavily traveled, but it does face a public way. And so our site plan of operation ordinance has some architectural requirements for either retail and office buildings or industrial and warehouse buildings. And this is sort of a warehouse use type of a building. And what that requires is that if you're facing a public way, 50% of the street face should be constructed of brick, decorative masonry, glass panel, or other appropriate similar finished facade as may be approved by the Plan Commission and Board. And that brick, masonry, glass, or other decorative facing has to extend at least 25 feet along the sides of the structure, so meaning it's got to wrap around 25 feet. And so they do have decorative block on the bottom of this building that comprises about 18% of the building facade. There's also some other decorative metal panels at the corners. The rest are sort of decorative metal panels as well. And so the question for the Plan Commission and ultimately the board is that appropriate? Is that acceptable for a finished material for the building itself? I'd also mention landscaping. We have landscaping requirements for building foundations, developed lots, street frontages, paved areas. You can't see the landscaping on this particular image, but they did provide a landscape plan. And I'm finding it. The bottom line with the landscape plan is that they've met or exceeded all the requirements of our landscape ordinance. They did not provide any landscaping for paved areas because that's only required for new parking lots, and that is not something that is being proposed. Here's the landscape plan itself. So they do meet or exceed our landscape requirements. In terms of exterior lighting, they are proposing 3 exterior lights on the building, 2 on the west face of the building here, and then 1 on the south side of the building here. Those lights are downward facing, cut off LED luminaires set at about 15 feet high in the building. They did provide a photometric plan that shows about 0 foot candles within about 30 feet of the building. So there aren't any foot candles that extend to the property lines, and so the lighting plan also meets the requirements of the ordinance. No additional signage is proposed at this time. In terms of stormwater management, there is an existing stormwater pond at the northwest portion of the site. That is, you can see on the overhead here, that's been existing and it's been part of a stormwater management plan since 2012. They have provided calculations for the increased impervious area. The findings suggest that no additions to the stormwater basin will be needed, no modifications. They have provided an additional catch basin which will route the stormwater to that pond itself. Waukesha County has not provided comments at this time, but there's no reason to believe that that existing pond would not be able to handle this. One of the conditions of approval is basically going to ultimately be Waukesha County stormwater approval. Chris, do you have any additional comments?
I do, thanks, Sean. I have just a real minor comments from my review letter dated October 1st. There's a series of permits that'll obviously be required for this that should be copied to the city or to the town once they're approved. Several of them are gonna have to come from the city, being that Coral Drive is a city street. And the water service and extension of water service to the building is coming off of city water main. Which leads to my second comment. Several of the notes on the drawing refer to getting these types of permits from the town, and I'm basically saying, no, you have to go to the city to do that. So pretty innocuous stuff from my perspective.
So there are a series of conditions here, mostly standard conditions. If the Town Plan Commission choose to approve, in effect, the approval would be based on the plan of operation that's been presented tonight and the site plan and all the accompanying drawings and documents, that they'll satisfy all conditions of the Town Plan Commission, Town Board, Town Engineer, and Town Planner for the site plan, architectural drawings, landscape plan, or other documentation. No outdoor storage is permitted, and the plan of operation will not be in full force and effect until the stormwater management is approved by Waukesha County and erosion control as well. The rest of them are standard site plan, plan of operation conditions.
Anything to add to that, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the design standards facing Coral Drive. That's something that we actually were aware of. You'll notice on the site plan that we're actually also accounting for future expansion towards Coral Drive, about 12,000 square feet. So as their inventory builds, so would the accessory building. And that's the reason why putting a full wall of masonry or decorative masonry on a wall that essentially is going to be hidden again once the future expansion comes didn't make a lot of feasible sense to us. So the owner fully intends, when the expansion comes towards Coral Drive, when you can actually see it from Coral Drive, to fully, meet all the design standards with the masonry and such. So we still try to at least dress it up, with the decorative concrete block base, adding the windows and such. But again, if you look at Coral Drive, for all intents and purposes, the traffic coming in is really going to have a hard time seeing this building to begin with. That's pretty much a vacant dead end. So it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. We understand that there are design standards, but our plan is to expand in the future, so just wanted to add that.
Okay, discussion, questions?
Yeah, when you say you're gonna expand in the future, what does that narrow it down to, 5, 10, 50 years from now? Or what? I guess my question is, that's kind of an open-ended comment here to make, and I guess if there's a future in that, I can live with that.
I think if you look at their business model and the history that they've had, they've always been growing pretty rapidly. So I could give you a day, but honestly, I can't. I
guess I get that. I'm just kind of concerned though that, is there some way we can put a limit as to someday that if you don't have it expanded by that date, we need to put a bigger front end on this building and make it look more appeasable to the rest of the area?
Why wouldn't the front of the building slide down to where the future expansion is gonna be and build onto the other end,
You're saying the building moves up and then you expand?
to the north?
Yeah, so if you look down, all of their traffic and their turnaround vehicle access is down at this court. That big circular pavement area is really where all the access happens. So they need to have that right there. If they started building from the top and expanded down, they'd have a further, it seems silly, they'd have a further amount of drive, but that equates to time and lost time for moving inventory to and from the building. So it was advantageous for them to keep the building as far south as possible and expand to the north for that reason. If that answers your question.
Lost time greater cost than the facade that you'd have to put on the building to be within code? That's a cost-benefit analysis that the business has to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I said, it's not the insulated metal panel is actually a decorative metal panel. It's really, I've seen far simpler and cheaper options for metal panel. This is actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Fuel Power Sports, but they have that in West Bend right off the highway. Looks great. This is going to be the exact same material, so I understand it doesn't technically meet the exact guidelines, but with the stone base, the concrete base, the clear story windows, we think that if you look at the rendering, it's actually, I don't think it has a bad presence at all from Coral Drive. But again, that's for you guys to decide. And again, we understand that we're not fully meeting it. So I'm just here to tell you what the plan is. And we fully intend to meet those design standards.
I guess we're here to tell you what the ordinance says we have to do. So,
Right.
We can't sidestep that for one and not everybody. So I guess that's kind of what we want to do, is stay consistent in my book, anyway, in my opinion.
I've got a question, and maybe this might help answer some of it. Can you describe your agency relationship with Action Power Sports? I don't mean that unkindly anyway, but tell us who you are and why you're here tonight rather than someone else.
Right, we're the architect. We've done all their past work, so I
Okay.
work with the design to construct. We've designed and built their prior buildings and interior build-outs and that. So we represent them tonight. They're not here tonight, but if there's any owner-specific questions, I mean, we have a good relationship. I think we understand what they'd be looking for here, so.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I mean, I'm happy to answer it.
I've got additional question in a minute, but maybe we want to further discuss any of the concerns about the building materials on the north side of the front of the building. I candidly, I think Supervisor Durr asked a good question. If you go back to that site plan, to be perfectly honest, his question made more sense than your answer, and I don't mean that in an unkind way, but he said, why not slide that down and do it right? That question made a lot of sense to me.
Again, if you think about it, you're going to have to pave. I mean, if you move the building to the north, which I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, that's what you're proposing, moving the building to the north, you're going to have quite a big gap of paving to fill. And then, I mean, you're ripping that out to build an addition down the road. So it's, I get it, doing it right. I mean,
Right, but
yeah.
I respect your opinion and I understand, but basically what you're asking me to do is violate our ordinance so that your client can save money. That's what you're asking.
Well, not necessarily. We're just saying that the future expansion, that would be the time to, when it's actually facing Coral Drive. But again, I understand guidelines
Okay.
are guidelines. We're not trying to say we don't want to follow that. We just wanted to present this option and get your opinion, that's all.
Why would all of the pavement have to be moved up? If the building was moved up toward Coral Drive, couldn't just a small access drive get to the garage doors rather than pave the whole thing up to the north? I mean,
To an extent, yes.
So
I think
the
it-
cul-de-sac stays where it is, and you just have a 24-foot drive that goes to the
that
garage
loops
doors.
around. It doesn't work as well. I mean, yeah, they utilize that for drop-offs, but you're right. I mean, it could work. It just wouldn't work as well for their operation. So it is feasible.
Could you maybe, I'm not sure I've quite got the grip on what the traffic pattern is or that type of thing. Is there a way somehow or other with that laser pointer or something that somebody could better explain what we're talking about for the efficiency and the traffic pattern, all that kind of stuff? I don't quite understand it.
So all of their drop-offs, if you don't, can I just talk away from the mic or, yeah, I can do the laser pointer.
Give them the laser pointer?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have one. Do you have one, Kathy?
Oh, we don't have one. Why don't you, for efficiency, why don't you go up there and just speak loudly,
Okay.
please?
Yeah. So when they have deliveries, and some of these deliveries will be going right into the storage building, larger trucks come through here and utilize this large turnaround. So what Sean's saying is that if they have to drop off here and the building's essentially at this line now, it just makes it a little bit harder for that truck to have to back in and unload when you already have pretty much a very easy turnaround and back in access for a truck. That was the mentality that the owners had here too. It just makes sense to keep it right here, where all of this, I guess, drop-off deliveries happen, and where a lot of motion can be happening in this large paved area, when you have a lot going on, a lot of vehicles going back and forth.
So are they coming from Coral Drive, or, I mean, just show us on there, how is the delivery truck getting in there?
It essentially comes from Coral Drive, comes straight down through here. If it's going to, the main action building is a dock right back here that it can back up into.
Okay.
And then it turns around and goes back out.
Okay.
Truck backs in, does a turnaround, and goes back out Coral Drive.
All right, so now, tell us how that works with the proposed building and the proposed location.
Well, we've added this pavement right here, so again, same story, if it's gonna drop off to our building, it can pretty much turn back in, stop right here, it's got an overhead door here, overhead door there to drop off inventory, and it pretty much backs up and goes back out, much the same.
But if you move the building farther north, doesn't that give you more area in the back for the trucks to turn around?
Right, you just have to add the paving to get back up to the main building. I'm not,
And that's the cost you're talking about?
not the cost, it's just the efficiency, I mean, for how they operate, it just seemed to make more sense to them from an operation standpoint. That's just,
If you did move the building north, where would the future building go?
essentially it'd go right here. So if you build in that top portion, this would be the new future building, and you build it right So again, it's just something that, when we were laying this out, we actually originally had it up front, like you guys are explaining, and then it was their decision to move it to the south for how they operate,
Well-
again, we fully understand
So,
that.
so I guess I question though, you already have 18% of the facade with decorative block.
Right.
And so to bring that up to 50% with a wraparound,
It's totally acceptable by us, so that's what I mean, we're not here to battle it out
Right,
or anything
okay.
like that, yeah, so
I
if
mean,
that's where you guys
basically,
feel, that's
From
fine.
your point of view, it comes down for me to what's the cheapest option? To come into compliance with our ordinance, or to pour the extra concrete and rip it out when you put on your,
And they would feel it
And
meet
if
the
you-
ordinance,
then
and
that's,
so, there you
that's
go.
what I'd be looking for. That
Perfect,
was easy.
works for us.
So the question, Mr. Chairman, is whether it needs to be tabled to bring it back so that they present a design that meets the code.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's, we get to that in a minute. I guess I'd like to ask one other question, and you,
Can I address the attorney's comment on that?
please.
And then I think we can leave it. From my point of view, I would be satisfied that a revision that satisfies the code with a review of the planner would be adequate from my point of view.
Okay. Can I, for a minute, just go to, and maybe somebody else, one other direction a bit, and you may not be able to answer this question, but on the south, towards the south side of the existing building, is there an area there that's being used for demonstration, testing, performance and so forth? Does anybody here even know that? I've not been to the property recently, but I know that was there at one point in time. And Sean, do you have any personal knowledge of that or not? And I'll tell you the reason they asked that question is because this goes back several months, but I had an informal complaint from a resident in the neighbor there about the noise generation and that type of thing. I haven't delved into that. I know that was presented at the point in time that they occupied that former Walmart building. And if you simply can't add any thing to that question, I understand that, but that is a resident's concern.
Yeah, I can't, the only thing I can think of is that their existing storage of vehicles is actually outside, so where this building is going is currently a fenced-in area outside, so I don't know if there's noise generated from their vehicles going into that or not. I'm not sure.
What I was, and again,
I don't know about the, to the south, I'm not familiar with any testing of vehicles that is going on back there, so at least that I can speak to.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
I have a quick one, a little bit on the same thing. I'm just curious, Malarkey, if there is a minimum distance between the two buildings that has to be, because I don't see a
10 feet.
10 feet.
10 feet's the minimum, and it's
What
not,
are
it's
they?
not labeled here, but but I think it's about, I don't know, 80 feet across there?
Yeah, just about.
I didn't see the measurement. Just
Right,
kinda
yeah,
curious
it's
what it
definitely
was.
not labeled, but it exceeds it.
I would personally, I would actually personally like to see this come back again before the Plan Commission. I mean, is there some absolute urgency to this? Is groundbreaking imminent or what? Or can you answer that at all or not?
I know they've been wanting to get moving on this building for a while. It's more for they're just packed to the gills, so the storage building is going to help considerably. I understand your process, though. I mean, we'll respect the process. I will say, though, that, I mean, we can come back if it's something that can be done at a staff level. We can come back with full 3D rendering again, so it's very, very clear what we're accomplishing in areas. So if we can maybe provide that and make it less necessary for another meeting, but that's
Okay.
your call.
I guess maybe we can kind of go around the room. I would personally we're not going to act on this tonight. I'd personally prefer to see it come back, but certainly we ought to look at what the will of the majority would be. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I'm fine with him working it out with our planner and staff. I don't see a reason for it to have to come back. Honestly, I don't really have an issue with the way that it's set right here, knowing that there really aren't neighbors, but we do have to follow our ordinance, so.
Of course.
I would have an issue with bypassing that.
I can go along with having this approved by our staff if they meet the code and the ordinance and everything with their front design. If we made that a condition of approval, I guess
Okay.
I can go along with that.
All right, anybody else?
I agree. If they're just gonna propose putting that brick on the coral side, I think the staff can do that also.
Okay. That would seem to be the majority of the people with that point of view. Any other questions or discussion? We're prepared to then make a a motion to recommend approval from the Plan Commission, and a condition of that would be to meet all of the conditions set forth by the planner and to allow the planner to pass judgment, if you will, on the code compliance on the building materials on the north side of the building and the wraparounds on the east and the west side of the building. Is that the action that we're looking for?
Mr. Chairman, that's not what I heard, but you could make that as the motion. I heard that if they increased the brick to 50%, the members would be, but the way you stated it is if they do anything that, in Sean's opinion, meets the code, that's okay. And those are two different things, and I just want to make it clear what is being said. Does everybody understand the distinction? I heard the commissioner in particular say, if they increase the brick to 50%, you're okay with it. There are many ways they can meet the 50% rule. That's just one of them.
But
Correct?
The code also calls for it to be wrapped around, does it not, Planner?
It does 25 feet along each side, so it could be that if they present an architecture that meets the code for warehouse buildings in terms of materials for Coral Drive and the wraparounds, that would satisfy the requirement.
So I guess for clarification, if we're going to take this action, we're going to defer this to the planner. So then, as Attorney Macy says, we need to be clear, I guess, on the directive we're giving to him.
So,
All right?
If I may make a motion.
Well, you
Or,
can make a
excuse me, I'm not a planning
well, why don't you make a suggestion if you want under discussion and
So,
see if that sits with the
not
plan
being on the
commission.
plan commission, my suggestion would be for a motion to approve the site plan of operation for Action Power Sports with the conditions as outlined by the planner, in addition to the condition that the facade facing Coral Drive meets the ordinance in terms of percentage brick on the front side and to the wraparound on each side.
Okay, and might I just even ask for clarification, does that also, does that or does that not require the repositioning of the building?
No,
Does not?
no, because then they would be meeting our code as to the facade that faces Coral Drive.
Let me try it again, and maybe I'm a bit confused on that. You're saying leave it in the existing location the way it is? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Because, and the reason that I say that is because, from my point of view, the reason to move it to the north was to only incur one cost of facade. Originally, the architect didn't want to incur the cost of facade that within the next 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 years, they were gonna rip off. Turned out that it's not a big deal, so whether they choose to move it to the north, I think that would have to come back. But if they would choose to move it to the north or leave it where it is, from the point of view of the facade that faces Coral Drive, if they meet our ordinance, doesn't really matter.
Okay, and I'm just trying to clarify it. I think you said the magic words. Your suggested motion for Plan Commission to approve the site plan is leaving it where they proposed it. So I think the question on that, if they're going to propose to move it, do they need to come back?
Certainly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So somebody go ahead. Go.
Would you be opposed to just increasing the facade material that you have to meet the requirement?
Hey, that's exactly what we're gonna do. I mean, we're gonna wrap it around the other side, and we plan to keep the building where it is and meet the design ordinance facing Coral Drive. I mean, and, yeah, so, however it's done, it will meet the design ordinance for material design and every standard that you have.
not to belabor this point, but how wide is the white and the red faux pillar there, you know?
I want to say that each of those panels is about 3'6", so it's about 14 feet wide.
So it's not quite
So
enough.
you're gonna put some kind of facade on the side between the red panel and the overhead door.
We might
By
have to
the
move
time you
it,
get
yeah.
to the other side of the overhead door, you're
Move the
gonna be
door.
past it.
Yeah. Like I said, whatever that language is for the design standard is what we have to meet, and we can meet that. That's our plan.
Did I understand, did you say you made a motion, you were making a motion, or thinking about making a motion, or what? Well, you have the opportunity.
I would move that we approve the site plan of operation, along with Malarkey's conditions, and that they meet the condition of the facade code by using the materials that they've already proposed.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion was made by Commissioner Fuller, second by Supervisor Stigler. Everyone on the Plan Commission understand the motion? Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. That's the recommendation, Town Board.
And I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
I will, go ahead. Okay, so the motion is by Supervisor Durr, seconded by Supervisor Radke to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission. All members of the Town Board in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. All right, item 11, discussion possible action on the final plat request of Jack Gaudian, owner, the Legend at Merrill Hills Condominium, Tax Keys, WAKT 13687. Excuse me, I'm going to do it again. 13689780003 and 1368994. Mr. Gaudian, you want to come up? Am I getting better on your name or not? I'm trying. All right. Sean, is this you?
Yeah, I will give an introduction and a little bit of history for those that weren't around when this was first approved. This is just south of the Legend of Merrill Hills Golf Course and driving range. It's a 33-unit single-family condominium development. The units themselves are located on Lot 1 of the CSM, and the driving range is located on Outlot 1 of the CSM. Back in 2017, the conceptual plans were viewed by the Plan Commission and Board. Shortly following that, there was a public hearing on November 9th, 2017 for the residential planned unit development conditional use request. So this is a conditional use. It's a residential planned unit development that allows something that's a little different than the typical R1 zoning. The property is zoned R1, but it does have a planned residential development conditional use associated with it to allow the creation of units that the houses will be built on to be smaller than typical R1 lots. The residential plan unit development conditional use approval included the site plan, the landscape plan, the lighting plans, and the preliminary condominium plat. Those were approved in December 2017. In May of 2018, the Plan Commission recommended and the Town Board approved with conditions the certified survey map. So again, that's what the units themselves are on Lot 1 of the certified survey map, and the driving range is on Lot 2. Then in February of 2019, the town approved a comprehensive plan change to the land use plan so that the driving range portion, Outlot 1, was not planned anymore for residential use, but is now planned for recreational use, so that the recreational use is memorialized, and those lots, or that driving range will not be able to be developed for residential purposes. In March of this year, the Town Board approved the developers agreement with the construction access and road protection agreement, the condominium documents, including the declaration of covenants, conditions and restrictions, and the land stewardship plan. The approval, however, was conditional on staff having final review on those based on comments made by the Town Board. Those have been reviewed. There are still a few minor comments out there that are being cleaned up as we speak. Then, on September 26th, just recently, the town board approved the letter of credit for all public, private, and site improvements and road protections, and the easements for the perpetual maintenance of Sun Valley Trail cul-de-sac, and then the use of the common areas 3 and 4 by the town for the storage of snow. So tonight, one of the last steps, not the last step, but one of the last steps, the petitioner is asking review and approval of the final condominium plat. So I did review the final condominium plat and have found that the submitted final condominium plat is substantially similar to the original approved preliminary condominium plat with a few differences. General differences is that the areas for units 1 and 2 and 16 to 33 are slightly different in size. The preliminary plat average, so when it was originally proposed, the average unit size was 28,985 square feet, and now the final plat average for each unit area is 28,887. So very small, less than a 1% decrease in total unit size or average unit size. In addition, most of the common areas also differ in size, have been slightly shaped differently. Everything but common area 2 is sort of changed in size. The final plat shows basically a 6.7% increase in size in the common areas, and some of that's due to the units getting that 1% smaller. It's largely due to common area 1 was extended a little bit to the north to encompass a little more of the previous driving range and squared off, and that was approved as part of the CSM in 2018. One other change was the shape of the 30-foot emergency access drive that goes out to Oak Knoll Drive. The shape of that is slightly altered. And then a couple of the septic easements in Common Area 5, which is the isolated natural resource area. A few of them are slightly larger and slightly different configurations. However, there are notes and restriction notes for that isolated natural resource area that protects it outside of the minimal disturbance for the septic systems. I'd also note that Common Area 3 is mislabeled as Common Area 6 and should be corrected. There were some, when the preliminary condo plat was approved and the PUD was approved, there were some restrictions for parking, so that parking would only be on one side of the private road. This is a private roadway that comes through here. That's noted in the condominium documents, but it's not noted on the final plat. Those should be included in the final plat. In addition, there were siren-activated gate sensors that were required at the entrance. Those should be added to the final engineering plans, which are not shown at this time. Waukesha County is reviewing the stormwater management plan, which takes place in Common Area 1 and part of Common Area 5. The county did say they would try their best to provide comments by tonight. I have not seen any comments on that. I know Christianelli took a look at some of the things, and I'll let him speak to that. One thing I wanted to note is that there were also some other potential improvements in the neighborhood that were outside of this for stormwater management, not necessarily tied to this plat, that were being proposed and some improvements happening. The county would like to, or at least thinking about holding a public information meeting facilitated by them to let neighbors know exactly what the plan is for stormwater management and how it's changed and how it impacts them as well. But at this time, any approval of the plat would be contingent on final county stormwater approval for the plan and the maintenance agreement. Engineer Ginelli, do you have any comments?
Thanks, Sean. Yes, I have. My letter dated September 30th has 7 comments, all of which are pretty much labeling and common issues, one of which Sean mentioned already. I will note 2 of them that I'd like to see a note added that common areas 3 and 4 will be subject to snow storage easement recorded by a separate document, and that another note stating that there'll be a landscape license agreement with the town of Waukesha and the Sun Valley Trail cul-de-sac also recorded by a separate document, just to kind of tie everything together. With respect to stormwater management, it's my understanding that the county is still in review of that, but I think they're 95%, 99% done.
Yeah, we're closer than that,
Yeah.
really. It's just getting the documents done the way they want them.
Okay. Last I heard, there was some basically getting down to how they want to record it, so. the
Some of
maintenance
it's recording,
agreement,
but
some of that.
we're also increasing the stormwater capability outside of this parcel.
Correct.
Into the golf course parcel.
Right.
So that requires us create a maintenance agreement and a stormwater, basically access agreement for the county that satisfies their ability and comfort level that it obviously encumbers the golf club.
Right.
But gets them access and maintenance to those areas, which significantly expand and enhance even greater stormwater, because we're now redirecting all the water, or as much as we can, into the golf course as opposed to the exit points it used to have.
Right.
And then we're also correcting a 50-year problem that's at the entrance to the club. There's the home next to us. So we've got stormwater going in there that you don't even see here, but that he is tied to this plan, that we will collect, infiltrate, and then pipe, in effect, across the 7th tee along Merrill Hills Road. So a significant, if not most, of all the water that goes across the neighbor's property that has, well, since the club's been there, 90 years, is now being redirected and piped away from that property owner. So it addresses, it's a goodwill gesture, really, quite frankly.
Correct.
But
I think you've done a great
it
job with
basically
that.
continues to, if there's any issues in the future, they're gonna be on the golf course. They're not gonna be as much with our neighbors as because of where the water used to exit and where it's now being directed. Because the water that eventually works its way to Merrill Hills Road gets collected, gets piped in the drainage ditch easement, right to the pipe that goes under the road. So it won't even touch that property owners. And it's just about how much water backs up into the golf course, really.
Right.
So that's all been done in here. So my attorney's working with Attorney Macy. My attorney is Rick Donner of Reinhardt Berner, trying to get all these easement agreements done, both for the landscape, for the island license, landscape agreement, and the snow storage easement agreement. All that's right in play right now. Most of it's done, but we're just, we keep submitting, making sure the language is right, much like we're seeing here. There's always something that we need to correct. So your comments I got today in the packet have already been sent to my engineer, which is Josh Padelko of Trio, and Land Tech, our surveyor that can record these easement access points. So a lot of the things I think both of you are focused on are being addressed right now. The one thing we weren't aware of was another public meeting on this. With all due respect, we've been meeting on this for 3 years. But if the county wants us to do it again, I guess we'll do it again. We've now gone through 2 different county people reviewing our stormwater plan. It would be disappointing to not be able to start this project right now. That would be very disappointing and even more expensive than it already has been. You guys don't approve the stormwater release. You're here to approve the condo plat, but obviously we'll make a strong plea to Alan that he can have all the meetings he wants. But if we've overperformed in the ability to get a permit, would like to get started, that's for him to decide ultimately. So, but that's the stage we're at, and I think I know we just presented from our bank to Attorney Macy a letter of credit that we're going to recraft again, but those are easy things, right? It's just getting my team in place to get the right things to the right people. I think we're there.
Yeah, I think you've summed up the stormwater aspects decently. The past history of this is the vast majority of the runoff from this site has kind of gone through the front yards of the people on the north side of Oak Knoll and works its way towards Merrill Hills Road. And that has now been cut off basically as a result of the stormwater management on the site.
Collection area, yeah.
And part of the problems being experienced are the people that own the lot basically adjacent to the golf club and Merrill Hills Road. All the water from this part of the world goes through their front yard, side yard, and under Merrill Hills. And that's been an ongoing issue for years. And as a part of this project, and as Jack mentioned, kind of a goodwill gesture, they've done some work on the golf club to improve that and mitigate a bunch of that. I wouldn't see that the county would not approve.
They seem to be fine with everything. It's really more about the easement language, it
Correct.
appears, and getting it recorded on the plat correctly. I just had this meeting with my engineer and my surveyor and my attorney all, at one table. the hourly cost in this thing is getting a little crazy. But anyway, it seems like everybody grasps it, and when we get notes, as long as my team is addressing your concerns, and if there's anything that isn't, I'd like to know it, because I just keep forwarding it to them to get it done, so. But I think all this gets crafted in the next few days, short of what Mr. Barrow wants us to do from the county side.
Couple of just real quick things, a housekeeping thing, I know it was alluded to, but you are in receipt of both the staff review that Planner Malarkey did dated September 30th and Engineer Janelli's letter of September 30th as well. You have
I printed those
copies of
off the package and forwarded this whole
Okay.
package to my team.
Fair enough. And just going to one other place, I hear and understand and appreciate your frustration with the permitting process as it relates to stormwater management issue. Back to this question about the county public information, the question and a comment about that. Is there any sense that if there was a desire to do that, that in any way would impact or delay the permitting process, or are those disconnected, or do we not know?
It's October. You know,
I
the
understand.
ground's gonna get soft, we're not gonna be able to move dirt, so.
Well, I understand that.
I don't
but-
know, I don't know if that would hold up the process or not. Alan Barrows simply mentioned that he was considering having an information meeting, not whether the permit would be issued after, or that would come subsequent.
That would be very important for me to understand.
And so you should talk to
Happy
him.
share-
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's first we've heard of it, at least my team hasn't
I
told me.
guess my comment would be because even I think as of yesterday, we continue to get some expression of concerns and complaints and stuff with stormwater in that area from town residents. I'm inclined to think that sharing of information might be a useful thing. I mean, I understand you're working hand in glove with the county to try to get the permitting process. I wouldn't want to see anything deter the permitting process, but if the county wants to help disseminate some information and we can invite town residents to be here, I'm inclined to think that might be a useful thing to do to address and answer any of those concerns rather
As
than
we've shown
driven by the rest of
great
us.
patience and forthrightness in going door to door from the start of this project.
I understand.
And happy to do it further, and happy to share, quite frankly, what we're very proud of is many issues are going to be substantially improved. Virtually all property owners near us are going to be
Sure.
substantially improved. And our engineers can speak to that, and the county can speak to that, and we're happy for all that. It's just, if that was a condition of the approval, that
I
would be a
understand.
little more frustrating.
And maybe nobody can answer that tonight, I guess, and invite other people to weigh in if that is not impactful on the permitting process
Correct.
in any way.
Right.
If, then I guess I would be inclined to think there would be some potential value in letting them do the public information meeting, if it is
We're
not
certainly not
impactful
opposed
on
to
the
that.
permitting process.
Right.
And anybody else have any thoughts about that? I mean, we're not gonna take formal action on that tonight, but I guess I would ask you, and maybe even to the extent Planner Malarkey's involved in it, if they want to do that, and we can be assured that it's not impacting on it, I guess I would ask for thoughtful consideration to set that up and allow them to do it. Okay? All right, further discussion on the issues at hand, which is the final plat. Plan Commission would, if we're inclined to act, would necessarily act first on this. Any further discussion? A motion for recommendation of the town board then would be for approval of the final plat with the conditions that were outlined by Planner Malarkey and his staff recommendation, and completion or fulfillment of the conditions outlined in Engineer Janelli's letter of September 30th. Would that be an appropriate motion?
Mr. Chairman, are you making that motion?
I just did. Would you like to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Chairman Fisher, second by Supervisor Stigler, so the Plan Commission can vote. If you understand the motion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was unanimous. Town Board, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Chairman Fisher, to accept the recommendation for approval with conditions for the final plat for Jack Gowdy, an owner of Legend Merrill Hills condominiums. Everyone understand the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so that passes unanimously. Thank you for bearing with us. At this point in time, anybody want or need to take a comfort pause? We can do that for 5 minutes. If not, we can keep going. Was that a yes?
He's out the door, you gonna jump on that.
Huh? You were gonna jump on that? All right, let's take 5 minutes, no more, okay? Thank you.
Trying to get any of those yet? Oh, there's a guy parked on 164. Looks like he's.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. Down the road between Mary's house. On his back, he's waiting for the mountain. Last 3 nights. Black. Yeah, that must be the same guy, because he's a little white one before you go up. He's hunting there.
Oh, that's that is, we call it sort of our last name.
It's slowed down by me considerably. You know, and, 17.
Yeah. No, that is.
Wouldn't it be nice if, we didn't have that.
Okay, folks, we're going to get going again. If you take your seats, please. We took a pause here at about 8:34, and we're resuming at about 8:39. So we'll continue with the meeting here. The next item on the agenda is for a public hearing. I'll read the agenda item. Notice is hereby given that a second joint public hearing involving the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Town Board will be held on Thursday, October 10th, 2019, following joint public hearing number 1, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Town Hall, located W250 S35, 67 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, to hear the request of Joey Wisniewski for Fred Lathers LLC, located at lots 1, 2, 3 of CSM 11589 for the purpose of a proposed rezone. So this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing. And again, Planner Malarkey, are you making a presentation on this item?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to talk about two things at once. The next item on the agenda is actually the certified survey map that accompanies this, but I will touch on both because it provides some context. The property in question is on the east side, about 66 acres on the east side of County Trunk Highway I, River Road. And this property has some history in the town. For a while there was a conservation subdivision proposed on it. There was a comprehensive plan change done to it to change from agricultural to suburban density residential 1. There's no longer a conservation subdivision proposed. What happened was there was a 3-lot CSM that was approved and created. Each lot was at least 20 acres in size because the property was zoned A1 agricultural, which requires 20-acre lot size. Since that time, the lot line between two of the lots was adjusted through the County Register of Deeds through basically a swap between landowners. And so the person that owns the home here to the south on one of the lots owns 10 acres. And so that property is still zoned A1. However, A1 requires a minimum lot size of 20 acres. The town of Waukesha does allow land transfers between adjacent owners to occur, but it still has to be reviewed at the Plan Commission and Board level to make sure that all the the zoning makes sense, the lot sizes make sense, setbacks make sense, et cetera. And so this particular issue was noticed when I was, after I started looking at the property, meeting with a potential buyer for Lot 2, noticed that the lot line was adjusted. It's a 10-acre lot, no longer 20-acre lot, so raised a red flag. The petitioner is back in front of us requesting a rezone of that one lot from A1, which requires 20-acre minimum lot size, to RE, residential estate, which requires a 3-acre minimum lot size. That's our next largest lot size down from A1. And in conjunction with that, a certified survey map redo of the whole thing to adjust some boundaries and to make the lots a little more developable. So if you see on the overhead, this is what the proposed CSM looks like. Lot 1 is as it exists today, as I just showed you on the overhead, which is 10 acres in size. Lot 2 is 21 acres in size, and then Lot 3 is 35 plus acres in size. And that's kind of moved down to the south a little bit from previous to make more of a buildable area there. So the only thing that's proposed to be rezoned at the time is Lot 1. Lots 2 and Lot 3 will be remaining as A1 agricultural. Lot 1 is proposed as residential estate. In terms of the comprehensive plan, it meets the comprehensive plan in terms of lot sizes and density. The size of the lots as they stand, as proposed in the CSM, will meet the proposed zoning comments as well, or the zoning conditions as well. Waukesha County has provided some preliminary comments. They will also be reviewing this because of the shoreline zoning that encompasses some of the property. They had a couple of comments. They're very minor in nature. Nothing about the CSM is changing in much regard, except for the movement of a couple of lot lines. The access points that were approved previously by the county for access on the county trunk highway I are staying in the same positions as well. So it's largely the same CSM as was approved before, with the movement of a couple of lot lines and the request for the rezoning of Lot 1.
Okay, Engineer Janelli, do you have something to offer?
I do. My comments are strictly about the CSM, if it's a good time to talk about that. It's real minor comments. Some square footages of the buildings that exist should be labeled on the CSM per town ordinance, and then also location, area, depth, and type of soil absorption waste disposal systems for each building site, if applicable, should be shown on the CSM per town ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Petitioner is present. You want to just step up and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Joey Wisniewski with Fiduciary Real Estate, representing Fred Lathers, LLC, also with Margaret J. Berg and Paul Schmitter. Just here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Are you, just hang a quick minute there, are you in receipt then of the staff review dated September 30th that Planner Malarkey just went through? You have a copy of that?
Yes, we have received the report.
And you have a copy of the letter of September 26th from Engineer Janelli?
Yes.
Okay. Any exceptions to take to any of what was written or what they presented?
No.
Okay. Then we'll proceed with the public hearing. Thank you, and anybody who would like the opportunity to come forward and speak, please do so at this time, point in time. Again, you should fill out one of those slips in the back of the room and identify yourselves and drop that off with the clerk. Anybody else who is going to speak to this issue tonight? Okay. Why don't you, I mean, you can fill that out when you're done. Why don't you give us your name, your address, go ahead and do it, and then drop the paperwork off, please.
My name's Stephen Fendrick, and my address is South 64 West 27670 River Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin. And I believe that 10-acre lot should be zoned RE as well.
Okay, so you are in favor of the request?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you want to then just fill out that slip and present it to the town clerk, we'd appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Anyone? Last chance? Any questions or anything of the town board? We will go to the discussion later, but any information that you're seeking at this time? Plan Commission or town board? Okay, if there's nothing further, then I'll declare the public hearing closed. We'll go to item 13, discussion possible action on the rezone request from Joy Wisniewski for Fred Lathers LLC located at lots 1, 2, 3 of CSM 11589, tax keys WAKT 14119960013, WAKT 14119960014, and WAKT 11419960009. Discussion by the Plan Commission, Town Board, and possible action by the Plan Commission and possible action by the Town Board. Discussion. Any issues, questions, concerns of that you might ask of Planner Malarkey or Engineer Janelli? Well, we can move it, thank you very much. Move it along then. Is a Plan Commission prepared to take action on the rezoning request? And if you are, I would submit a appropriate motion would be to recommend approval of the request of the town board if you're inclined to do so, incorporating the recommendations from the planner and the issues addressed by the town engineer. I will make such a motion. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Discussion? Plan Commission? Everybody understands the motion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That's fine. Go ahead. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Supervisor Durr, or motion by Supervisor Durr, second by Supervisor German to accept the recommendation for approval of Plan Commission. All of the members of the town board in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 14 then is discussion possible action on the certified survey map request from Joy Wisniewski of Fred Lathers LLC located at lots 1, 2, 3 of CSM 11589, tax keys WAKT 14119 96013, 14119966014, and 11419966009. Discussion by the Plan Commission, Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission, possible action by the Town Board. Discussion. Planner Malarkey, is it fair to say in your staff report that we referred to, does that cover not only the rezoning, any of the issues pertaining to rezoning, but the certified survey map as well?
Yeah, and there's an action item on each of those with separate conditions.
Okay. All incorporated in that report. Okay, everybody understands that? If you look at that, that's your pages 2 and 3, what you're saying, you've separated the recommended conditions for the rezoning and the CSM?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody understands that? And I guess even maybe a bit, I spoke before, Engineer Janelle, your letter of comments are really directed to the CSM rather than the rezone. Okay. Plan Commission, anybody prepare to make a recommendation for action on this matter? I'll move for a recommendation to the Town Board of approval of the certified survey map request from Joy Wisniewski of Fred Lathers LLC, and incorporating into that recommended motion for approval the staff recommendations on the certified survey map from Planner Malarkey in his report of September 30th, and Engineer Janelli in his letter report of September 26th, and I so move. Is there second the motions? Motion by Chairman Fisher, seconded by Commissioner Fuller for approval. Any further discussion by the Plan Commission? Plan Commission, all members in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passed unanimously. Town Board, are you prepared to act?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Okay, all right, motion by Supervisor Radke, seconded by Supervisor Stigler. The motion is accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission for approval of the certified survey map with conditions. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, folks. Item 15, discussion and action to direct staff concerning conditional uses, specifically on the following: sub 1, wireless communication facilities; sub 2, event venues; sub 3, verbiage that existing conditional uses would continue as approved; sub 4, repeal of the rest of the conditional uses; and sub 5, setting a joint public hearing on September 14th. And then this is discussion by the Plan Commission, Town Board, possible action by the Plan Commission, possible action by the Town Board. I'm assuming, perhaps incorrectly, but that Attorney Macy and Planner Malarkey might well want to speak to this issue.
Well, previously the town,
should we defer and let Administrator Nicholas speak first? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun on that. Go.
Okay, so I brought this forward. We have a few items that we've talked about at past meetings, and I wanted to get some action from the board to direct staff concerning these issues so we could bring them back. I'd like to bring them back as one, because there's zoning changes, I'd like to bring them back as one public hearing. It doesn't have to be November 14th. I just gave you a date, the next board meeting.
So, and either rest you can jump into that. Are we primarily looking at simply giving the directive to address these things, or are you looking for any direction or substance, or simply the direction and authorization to do something? Maybe that was an awkward question, but you understand what I'm asking?
What I brought it forward so we understood that we had these as items, and I wanted to know if you wanted the staff to move forward on these to bring something back to the board for approval.
Okay, and I didn't mean to jump around on that, but Planner Malarkey or Attorney Macy, if either one of you have any things you want to say to that, or recommendations or whatever, if not, that's okay too.
Oh, no, I definitely think we have to outline for the commission and the town board what the thoughts are on each of these and why we're, I think Sean why don't you give the history and then we'll go to the specifics. What got us here today, you know, the repeal, then the delay, and then, well, I can do it. As you know, the legislature passed a law that I'm not particularly happy with that changed conditional uses from a privilege to a right. I think everyone's well advised of that. We've dealt with it for the last, year or so, and we put in procedures. As part of that procedure, you, as well as almost all of my clients, started the process to repeal your conditional uses so that we wouldn't have any people come in until we got the requirements and conditions. And let me tell you what I mean by that is many of your conditional uses, since it was a privilege and not a right, don't have a lot of requirements and conditions right in the code. For instance, I always like to use the airport one as an example. Most codes have no requirements or conditions for an airport, which is ludicrous. I mean, I'm sure we all know that the feds would have some say as to whether there's an airport, but that's just, you need to have requirements, minimum acreage, zoning, things like that for an airport. But because you could turn them down in the past for any unconstitutional reason, it wasn't as concerning that you didn't have the requirements and the conditions in the code. So most communities are doing a two-step process. They're repealing their conditional uses and then rewriting the ones either as permitted uses, conditional uses with the necessary requirements and conditions in the code, or eliminating them totally by not allowing airports or things like that. So we started that process, and you repealed them, and then we ran into some issues. The issue was, in part, that Attorney Hammes made a claim that he has this Germantown case, which he does have, that seems to claim that any conditional use becomes a legal non-conforming use and you have no control over the conditions. Now, I think we at our firm don't believe he's reading that case necessarily the only way that it can be read, but instead of having that war, we recommended the county delay in adopting your ordinance. And the town board accepted that recommendation, and the administrator requested the county to table action on the ordinance that repealed the conditional uses. So that's where we are today. We went through the entire process, we repealed them, we sent it to the county went through their entire process, they were down to the day before, and we got hit with this, and the town board decided, let's put the brakes on for a second, and let's think about it. So we're here tonight to think about it and decide what we're going to do in the next step. In the interim, there was a rumor on the street that someone wanted to apply for a cell tower, and there's all kinds. I must send out every 2 months the new laws that the feds and state have done on cell towers, and I'm sure you've all got copies of them. And so Kathy had everything in the works, parallel with what was going on with the CU, to get cell towers back in the code. And there is a model code that we put together for all of our clients that Kathy has that she was going to. So the number one on your 15, on your list, Roman numeral 1 is the wireless communication, and we're recommending that we go back to the ordinance that we've already done that repeals everything. But in this time, instead of just repealing everything, we put wireless communication facilities back in the new state-of-the-art way of doing it, okay? So we'd repeal it in the first part of the ordinance, but we'd put it back in with the new ordinance that gives you as much protection as you can have. And Kathy, as of last week, they even gave us new law, and so we could put some more protections back in. So we'll have to give Sean that one, the model that we have, and that new information that hopefully you've been copied on, that gives us some new authority on setbacks and things like that. Event venues, I think Kathy has on the list to look for guidance as to what you want to do with event venues. The next, and I don't have any specifics on that. I don't know, Kathy, if you did. I think you just knew it was of interest to the Plan Commission and the board, so.
That's correct.
Is there anything specific that we weren't recommending
No.
as a staff?
Right, I brought these up so then the staff could meet with them is what I was looking for. And then we'd bring them back and to discuss. But at this point, we haven't written any of the documents. I didn't want to move forward and do that before I got approval to do just that. If that was the direction of the Plan Commission and Board, that you wanted to go ahead and move these things forward, then staff will work on them, bring them back to the board for consideration.
The next one, number 3, I do want to talk on very briefly, and that is instead of repealing them only, we're going to be making a recommendation to you that we repeal them, but say everybody who has a conditional use remains, they get to keep their conditional use. We'll make a category called existing conditional uses and say that each conditional use that currently is in place continues as a conditional use with the same conditions, with the same rules and things like that. So they can't claim that they're a legal non-conforming use with no conditions. We haven't written that paragraph yet, but because we're waiting, as Kathy's indicated. But in talking to Kathy, I have suggested that this is the way we're now going to recommend to all of our clients to go. And then, of course, you could deem to continue to repeal the rest of the conditional uses and set the public hearing. So that in the way of background, and I'll defer to my other members of staff to see if they have anything they want to add.
I was under the understanding on the conditional uses when we repealed them that every one that was in place remained in place under the conditions it was granted under.
We believe, no, our position, it's almost that. We believed that everyone became a legal non-conforming use and continued to operate under those conditions. Okay, so I think we may be saying the same thing. Yes, they would continue to operate, but there is this obscure case that Attorney Hammes has from Germantown. I know what it's based on. It's really, it's horrible law. It's based on a very specific fact situation. But it says on its face, if you read it literally, that everybody becomes legal non-conforming and you have no control over them. I'm paraphrasing, but that's literally how you could read it. I don't believe that's what the court meant, you know, when they said how many cars the guy could sell and things like that. But that would be ludicrous. You know, if you had a riding stable that had X amount of acres and you limited the number of horses and it became a legal non-conforming riding stable and now they weren't limited in any way to the maximum number of horses or horse shows or anything. To me, that's absolutely ludicrous. It would cause havoc, you know, but we can fix it. So, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, the only thing I would add is, or ask for is, again, further clarification on what the expectation for event venues is in terms of the conditional use. What are we trying to accomplish? We have a set of conditions. We obviously want to put that back in. And so we probably need to have some discussion in terms of what those conditions might be. And then finally, Chairman Fisher, you brought up today, would there be possibility for maybe other conditions that might stay, such as a in-law unit? I know there was a lot of time and effort that was put into drafting the language for that not that many years ago in terms of the conditions for in-law units. And so could we consider that and keep that as part of the code at this time as well?
Have a question and then a comment, but the question is really kind of a process, procedure, timing question. Setting a joint public hearing on November 14th, are we anticipating that we would have some recommendations or what or not to consider, or is that simply open to the public to have them comment on 5 topics? I guess I don't quite understand the timing or the process.
When I put the date in, I just wanted to make a date that our next Plan Commission meeting is. We don't have to set that public hearing. We can bring back these few items back for November 14th for more discussion. So we could do a draft. Staff could work on it, do a draft, bring them back. Then you could make edits, and then we could bring it back the following month for a public hearing.
I guess I think that would make more sense to me. Anybody else a thought on that?
No, I gotta agree with that. I think November 14th is a little too soon. I think we need to get some input from our staff. We need to hash it out here again, as we're doing tonight on things, and then if we're all in agreement on that, then move it to a public hearing, but I think it's too soon.
I guess I'll just, does everybody concur with that or not, that it would be too soon to try to do the public hearing until we've got an opportunity to thrash some of this out? I've got just one quick comment, Planner Malarkey, since you raised the issue. I mean, with the event venues, I would be anxious to see what staff would recommend. I guess at a minimum, I think our ordinance needs to be, for event venues, needs to be tightened up or eliminated. Something needs to be done to preclude the possibility of somebody operating a business enterprise in area which is designated for residential use on our land use map or zoned for residential purposes. I'd be looking at that as a minimum expectation.
So the board and
Anybody else? I'm sorry.
The board and Plan Commission agree that the staff should get together and start working on this?
I agree.
So as I read this, that anybody who has an existing conditional use okay, scratch that question. Never mind.
Anyone who has an existing conditional use, the conditional use.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Now, we heard the comment on the event venue, and Mr. Malarkey mentioned the in-law. If we work with Kathy and we go through these, and we see others that look like they got enough teeth in them and they got enough meat, you know, we could either leave them in or tweak them to get them clearly to say, here are the requirements and conditions so that, and here's the zoning district they're allowed in, you know, to make them look more uniform. And we're not talking about the full rewrite, which is going to come later, but the down and dirty simple ones. We have authority to bring those back next month and see if you agree that we were correct, that those were the down and dirty ones.
I would certainly support that. I mean, I mentioned one other thing just before the meeting started to Planner Malarkey. It doesn't have to be necessarily addressed at this point in time, but we had discussion a number of months back about and trying to get some interpretation, and we talked about preschool, nursery, daycare type of thing, and what might be considered educational or otherwise. I think that's such a reality at some point in time. I think we need to address whether it's appropriate either as a permitted use or conditional use for those types of uses, like in a business zoning or that type of thing. And I did again. I think we need to address that, or at least have a discussion about the in-law suite.
Okay, we can just pick them.
So the daycare issue, so I'm understanding, that's potentially a little bit aside from the conditional use issue, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's permitted in some districts, it might be conditional in others, but you're looking for clarity of how that fits into the code and where.
I think so, and whether it's with this brush stroke or whether that comes downstream, I'm just saying I think that's something that kind of needs to be on the radar screen. When we addressed that the last time, I think there was kind of a policy interpretation made on that, or whether or not I think we ought to a little bit address that up front, because we may encounter that again. And there may be other examples of similar kind of things. Do we want, I mean, so we can move along here, do we have, is the sense or spirit that we want to direct the staff to address these things and come back with some recommendations, some drafts or that type of thing for us to discuss? Is that where we're going? Does anybody take issue with that?
Well, I don't take issue with that, but your comments about operating a business in anything that's zoned residential or designated residential, are you saying that you would want to tighten up our code to prohibit that in any situation, or only as it pertains to event venues?
No, mine was specifically with regard to 15 sub-2 event venues, so someone cannot operate a business enterprise. An event venue is a business enterprise in land that's designated for residential use or zoned for residential use. It's that specific.
What about ag use?
Just let me finish my follow-up question, if I may. So why would we only single that out to event venues? I mean, we wouldn't want them to operate a junkyard in anything designated residential or
Well, you think they could operate a junkyard in residential now? I don't think they could operate a junkyard in
But I don't
residential.
understand why we would isolate and single out event venues. If we want to tighten up our code in running business enterprises in residential, why wouldn't we just tighten up our code for that in all aspects?
Well, what other business enterprises do you think you can operate in residential zoning?
Home occupations.
I'm not considering that, in my definition, is not a business enterprise. If somebody's making paper dolls in the basement, that's not a business enterprise in my definition, okay?
Well, what about if they're making cupcakes?
Well, that's, if somebody's making cupcakes, if they're good to eat in their basement, yeah, I think I see that a bit differently.
This is where,
I'm speaking to the event
okay, so
venue.
you just want to single out event venues.
I'm not singling it out. I think that's an appropriate thing that we need to tighten it up.
Just for clarity, it's a conditional use that's allowed in any zoning district right now. So it's a business.
understand that.
It's a business that's allowed in any zoning district. So what I think I'm hearing is that you don't want it to be allowed in any business district or any district at all. It's only specific districts that might be allowed.
Correct.
I'm
Or
not
land
against-
uses,
I'm not against
absolutely.
event venues either, just in a residential area.
Well, I understand, but we shouldn't single out just event venues.
Well, what do you want
for
to put
that.
in there besides event venues?
Well, I know for sure that we have a cupcake maker in a residential area. I mean, I'm sure
I
there's
guess
others.
I don't understand is that,
I just don't think that we should single one item out.
I didn't think we were. I thought we were working at these at hand on number 15.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I asked the chairman. I asked the chairman,
Well, these are the ones that we're working on as of right now. We're not working
I
on
asked the
any
chairman
others.
if he wanted to tighten up the language in the code as it pertains to running a business out of residential, either zoned or land use, or if he was targeting it strictly to event venues.
And I would, I guess, take exception to the word targeting, but that's exactly what we're
Well,
talking
you
about, is
wanna
event
put it-
venues.
You want to put it in the event venue code, right?
Put what in?
The restriction of never being able to operate in anything that's zoned residential or designated
A
residential.
business enterprise. If somebody came in with an event venue and it was even in residential land and said, we'd like to have the Girl Scouts there 3 times a year from 12 o'clock until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not a business enterprise. I could probably get behind that, but not when somebody's operating a business on land that is in our land use plan for residential use or zoned for residential purposes as an event venue per that
As
part
an
of the
event venue.
statute.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to target event venues. Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Okay. Anybody else? Do
Yeah,
we,
Just a question, a clarification. So as we sit here today, conditional uses are still applicable. Someone could come in and apply for one.
Yes.
correct?
true?
Okay.
Yes.
That's absolutely true.
And,
We put that back.
even after, if you pass the, and repeal the rest of the conditional uses, they can still apply until the county approves ours. So that takes a couple months after we approve, so.
Okay, does the way it's set up in the agenda, does the plan commission want to take action? I guess the action would be to direct the staff to prepare some recommendations on the 5 items that are listed under item 15. Is that the action we would take?
As well as to see if there are any, as I call, down and dirty ones that we could bring back with. Hopefully not a lot of, and if there was a lot of discussion, we'd immediately chop them next time and say, okay, we'll hold
All
those
right.
till next time.
So
we
for the
wanted
men-
the authority to read
Right.
through the list and bring back those that are hopefully no-brainers. And if they get to be controversial, our recommendation will drop them.
So I'll modify it. I mean, these 5 and allow staff to use some discretion if you want to expand that list. Is that fair enough?
Thank you, that's great.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment about the
Sure.
wedding venues again? I mean, I remember we brought this, added to this ordinance, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, where we added event venues specifically to residential areas. Would it be prudent to just repeal that part of that ordinance and get back to square one and not have even this be an issue?
Let's do one just real quick thing, and I want to jump to
All
that.
right.
Is there a second to the motion or not? We can continue the discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so then let's continue discussion. I mean, I guess in the realm of possibilities, the recommendation or discussion could possibly be to strike event venues in its entirety. Is that not a possibility?
In residential areas, is that what you're saying, or
Completely.
entirely in the town?
Completely. There's a possibility. I'm not
I guess
necessarily
it's a
suggesting that.
possibility, but I'm not necessarily against wedding venues in the appropriate area.
Fair enough.
I think in a commercial area somewhere, that's
I
very
think we have our
appropriate.
direction. I think we know what to bring back, just for discussion purposes, okay? It won't be to repeal them totally, it'll be to keep them in the business districts. We will give you a list of zoning districts that they will be allowed in. You will add to that list or subtract to that list. That'll be the discussion. I don't foresee changing anything else other than to saying they're no longer allowed in every district, they're allowed in the following districts. And you'll be able to work on that list. We'll give you the whole list of every zoning district, and we'll cross out those that they're not allowed in, and they can just, you'll pick and choose from there. Because that's what the discussion should be, from
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
only
hearing.
brought it up because I thought you're looking
Yeah.
for direction, and I just
Yeah.
giving you that direction.
Yeah, and we understand.
So Bob, I think you might have, when I heard you, I thought you said that we brought this in and added it for residential. We actually brought the whole conditional use in as one. We just never specifically said which districts it was in. So we didn't bring that in saying it can be done in a residential district. It was brought in, the board approved it as a new conditional use, and it didn't have any restrictions on what district it is in. So I wanted to just make sure, so,
Yeah, I guess
we'll
I
bring it
understand
back
that.
and
It's-
we'll try to narrow that
But
down.
it did allow it to
and-
be in a residential area.
It did,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, further discussion? We can continue. If not, there is a motion on the floor to the Plan Commission to consider to direct the staff to consider and come back with recommendations on the 5 items under item 15, and to expand that at their discretion, and come back when they're prepared to do that with a report and recommendations for discussion by the Town Plan Commission, Town Board. I think that's the essence of the motion.
That's a long motion.
Well, you can condense it, clean it up, that's where we're going. All right, Plan Commission members, does everybody understand that unnecessarily long motion?
I thought it was perfect.
Uh-oh. Would you get closer to your microphone, please, there, Attorney Mace? I don't think everybody heard that. He shut it off. All right, we're confused now. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. I'm not going to make any more motions tonight. Town Board, who would like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the Plan Commission's recommendation. You have me all tongue twisted also.
Is there a second? I'll second. Supervisor German, this motion is to recommend acceptance of the Plan Commission recommendation. I seconded it. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's 5-0. Report from Administrator Nicholas on status of Lilac Acres, discussion by the Plan Commission and Town Board.
So I was asked to put together an update report for Lilac Acres to answer any questions that the board may have. At this point, I've only received one question, and that was concerning staff report and update meetings. We had 7 agendas that had Lilac Acres mentioned between August 27th, 2018 and March 25th, 2019. The question was, why was the item on the agenda since it was already passed? We kept, when we were doing staff meetings, we kept all the items that were still outstanding, that weren't completed on there. It was kind of a checklist to say, has anybody heard anything about Lilac? Has anybody heard anything about Merrill Hills? And we continued to do that. If there was nothing heard, there was no discussion. The second question was the item discussed? Was Lilac Acres discussed? I reached out to staff that were in attendance during those meetings and asked if any discussion was had. Anyone take any minutes? No one had taken any minutes. The only billing that was done was by Engineer Janelli. He stated that on the August 27th, he had discussion to finalize his CSM change, and that was it. Before he does, what we would do at these meetings is discuss what was going to the board for the Plan Commission, go through the staff reports, make sure that we all understood, reviewed things, kind of caught what we were doing was proofing and catching things that were coming in and out of the staff reports. So I'm just going to update you on the event barn. Originally, the state approved plans for the barn were received and reviewed by the building inspector. And on March 3rd, 2019, permits for the construction of the event barn were issued. Occupancy was later granted 8/8 of 2019. There were changes made from the original state approved plans during the construction. The updated plans with the changes were sent to the state for final approval, or for conditional approval. Again, this step was unnecessary as our building inspector has the certification and license to approve the changes that were made. The state did return a conditional use approval letter. It was dated September 18th. We didn't receive it because they sent it to independent inspections, but we did get it from the owner, and so he sent it over. And essentially the revisions involved were reducing the size of the building from 4120 square feet to 3963 square feet. They changed the roof framing over the toilet rooms and from rafters to pre-engineered roof trusses. They added a wood trellis and added a new window in the Great Hall. The ADA parking is now complete, was complete before their first event. They are still waiting on a final upgrade of their doors. Doors just haven't come in. They do have doors on, they're just not the final doors. The single-family home plans were given to the building inspector for a single-family dwelling. After review by the building inspector, he issued the permit for the single-family dwelling on February 12th, 2019. Occupancy was granted on September 6, 2019 for the event house. There is an existing garage, and it still exists with the building. They're using that for storage. The chapel barn is not in use. Plans are expected to be brought to have reviewed by the building inspector for the changes that need to be made, and then for permits to be issued. But they're not there yet. They're not using it, but they're not. They haven't completed their plans and changes. The event barn has been used for 4 events: August 10th, September 7th, 14th, and 22nd. The owner has sent the required forms, which state the date of the event, the type of the event, the number of guests, the number of staff. the hours of the event, the time of the last call, the time that the music ended. The form also asks the name of the security person for the event, description of how the sound levels were monitored, so they did not exceed the 75 decibels at the property line, and a statement that assured all other requirements and conditions for the event venue had been met in accordance to the CU. We have had no complaints for the noise or any complaints at all for the events during those events or after the events happened. They have 2 events scheduled for the rest of the year. One is in October and another in November. After having a conversation with the owner of the property, they expect to have updated site plan and plan of operation application to us and that will include the driveway change, the stormwater change, retention changes that were required by the county. In addition to the changes, any changes to the parking area and landscaping changes will be in the plan. They're expected to be on the December 12th agenda. So that is my report. Any questions?
Any questions? Discussion?
And maybe you can answer these, I don't know, but I guess
Okay.
part of the questions that I'm hearing from people is that, you know, we had a conditional use and these things were changed without plan commission approval. And that requires in the code that any changes in the conditional uses have to come to the plan commission, such as the building size and the additions and change in the area of the barn, the event venue, I believe. The house being torn down and replaced with a new one. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that protocol, I thought was that all those things had to come back to the plan commission. And this happened in a staff meeting, is that correct? Those things got approved?
I have no minutes that it happened at a staff meeting. Sean might be able to help us with that.
Who okayed all these changes?
Well,
Nobody can
The,
Nobody okayed them?
the changes to the building were, building inspector changes. They just had to move they shrunk the size and, due to the fact that, they had to change something with the venting. That was the reason why it shrunk.
with all due respect, I mean, at least 2 times we've been asked if we had any questions on Lilac Acres so that the answers could be researched and provided. I mean, are we gonna start asking all these questions now? I mean, where were the questions when we were gonna give the administrator time to research them?
Well, my question is, when I built a home, I had to come back for any change that I made with the home, and this letter
But-
here pretty much states a lot of changes.
Okay, but then why didn't we get that question to the administrator when she has asked multiple times?
I just received this letter this evening.
Well, but you knew that that very issue was an area of concern of yours the last time we talked about this. If that was a concern of yours, did you provide the administrator with a request to include that in her report? Now we're gonna sit here and talk about it for the next hour at 9:30 at
I'm
night?
not talking about for hour, just
So-
asked who approved all these.
So I have a question. You had said that you had to come back to the board when you did a change in your house? Just the building inspector, correct?
Planning commission, board,
To make a change to your house?
yeah, my CSM, my home, everything, anything I made a change to, I had to
Okay.
come back.
So they are coming back. It may be after the fact, but they are coming back. They're just, they've gotten the approval from the state on the documents. They are bringing everything back for you to review, so.
We can't talk generically. There was a question about all the changes, and there's a question about the changes. I think those are legitimate questions, and Sean did answer some of them in his first report, so I think we'll update the report and answer those questions. We'll take each of the changes individually and tell you what we know about how they occurred and what approvals they need, or approvals they got, and what approvals they need. I think in fairness to your question, that's what we should do. Okay?
Okay.
And I think I hear that So the question was, we now have this list of changes. They're the same list, I believe, that was in Mr. Malarkey's previous report, but we'll say what the change was, what we know about how they came about, who approved them if they were approved, and who needs to still approve them. Is that fair enough? Will that answer your question, Mr. Stiegler?
Yes, I guess my question, though, and you're directing thing that we didn't ask these questions sooner was, we were directed by, when we had Lilac Acres here, we were directed not to ask any questions.
No, Kathy sent several memos asking if anybody has any questions. That's what was being referred to. She
Right.
sent some emails, and that's what was being, I think that's what
remember
Mr.
getting
Dorr was referring to. But that's fine, we can get over that hurdle. You've asked the question tonight, we're gonna get you an answer. Fair enough? Is that, and we understand your question. The changes were made, who approved them? What do we know about the history of the changes? Who approved them, if they, and who has to approve them? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I guess, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of things here that could benefit Lilac Acres, because the credibility there is gone on it from a lot of the neighbors and things like that in that
Okay.
part of the world,
And-
and
and-
they want to know why they got certain things and that were in the conditional use and weren't followed.
Okay. And Supervisor, will that answer your question also?
My comment or question to this would be, again, we just received the report just before the meeting tonight. I haven't even read it yet. I appreciate your going through it. I will simply tell you, I have no desire to sit and talk about this for an hour, but I have probably more questions now than I had before we even received the report. So I will provide those questions in written form and give opportunity to supplement the report, to give thoughtful consideration, to research it and supplement your report.
And you advised Kathy before the meeting that you were gonna do that, and that's great, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, you
So-
said, I still have some questions, I haven't gotten them to you, please give
Right.
an interim report.
Sure.
And I'll get you my questions, and now we have the other two supervisors' questions. Anybody else who has questions, please get them in writing to Kathy as soon as you can.
Okay, does that work for everybody? I don't think, this
you.
is just noted for discussion. I don't think we need to go any further than that unless anybody has anything to add. Then an adjournment to the Plan Commission meeting would be in order at this time. Is there a motion to that effect from a Plan Commission member? I'll move to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded
that.
by Commissioner White, so motion by Chairman Fisher, second by Commissioner White to adjourn. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you. Plan Commissioners, Town Board continues. I have a request here under item 18. We've got items A through F. I would like to move item F.
Good night. Good night, gentlemen.
I'm sorry. I would like to move item F up in the agenda because I believe Ms. Grunfelder is here. Does anybody take exception to that, or would that be acceptable? I'm fine with that. Everybody okay? All right, then item 18, business. 18F, you okay with that?
I would appreciate if we could do A first, so then Chris can leave, because we're paying him hourly while he sits in.
Well, we better do that. All right. Are we done with item A? You can leave. Item A, discussion and possible action on final payment and closeout of 2019 road program contract with Payne and Dolan. Let's do that quick so
Yeah, I
you
think-
can leave and the meter will stop running.
I think this will be really quick. I suggest we table this at the moment. This is perhaps on the agenda a bit prematurely. I was actually kind of hoping that the contractor would have responded by now with
Right.
this list of things. It would be appropriate for him to review the payment, sign the
Okay.
change order, and all those kinds of things before we actually act on it. So
I'll move
I
to
suggest we
table.
table. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. I moved, Supervisor Radke seconded to table this item. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye.
evening.
Okay, thank you. Can we dive to 18F now? Is that good? Discussion, possible action on Bonnie Grunfelder for an extension of non-compliant compliance property located at W 231 S 2522 East Racine Avenue.
So Bonnie had been given an extension last month, or the month before, to get her property cleaned up. Our building inspector went out to do a inspection. We found that there was just the car left. She cleaned everything else up. The only other item, though, when he showed up was that now she had a temporary storage unit. So, and she's been very good about understanding that we don't allow those in our town. And she's here to ask for an extension.
Okay, what's your request? Get right by the microphone, please.
I'd like a 30-day extension to get rid of the tent and the car. The car's licensed.
All right.
I've got a collector plate on it. I've got receipts for products that have been purchased for the car. I'm waiting on tires. I can't get in the shop until it's got tires. They don't want it. Tires were supposed to come in on Tuesday this week. That didn't happen. It's been raining, so it's very hard to do work on the car when it's been pouring.
Okay.
I got a job this week. I've been unemployed since June.
Good for you.
So-
Congratulations.
Yeah, so finance has been tight, and I've got receipts if you'd like to see them. Cost $400 and some to get the plate, and that's just licensing. I've got $700 in car parts. So we're working on it.
All right, I may not have heard the first part. Did you made a specific request for an extension?
Yes.
Of?
To get the car
For
moving in
how many days, you said?
30 days, because I
For
don't know.
30
I'm
days.
waiting on, the car is 1983 Dodge
Okay.
Shelby Charger, and it's not like I can go to Kmart or Walmart or Farm and Fleet. A lot of it has special equipment.
I'll move to grant the requested extension of 30 days to Bonnie Grunfelder.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying here for the long meeting. All right. What did
Nothing's free, it would just be paid for by the taxpayer. And that's you.
All right, back to 18B. Is that where we're at? Discussion possible action operator license application for Matthew Swerline, working at the Legend at Merrill Hills. I'm assuming he's not here tonight?
No, neither of them are here.
All right.
You have in your packet the operator's license applications for both Matthew and Joshua. Both of them have I have no concerns about their background checks. So I ask approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the operator license for Matthew Zwerline and Joshua Gossett.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, seconded by Supervisor Stigler to approve the... Oh, Mr. Durr, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. All right, to approve the operator's license application, Matthew Zwerline and Joshua Gossett. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, passes unanimously. Item 18D, discussion possible action on 2018 3500 Ram DPW dump truck. Have we got a report on the location, the status of that? Where are we at? Does anybody know?
So we did pick up the dump truck. It is in our garage again. So we are just waiting for a decision if you want it to be held until you purchase a new one, or if you'd like me to try to sell it either. I would have no problem going ahead and taking the pictures, putting it on the municipal site to see if any of our municipalities in the state are interested in it, to try to look for a buyer, if that's the direction you're looking at, selling it outright or trading it in. I just need to know what you're looking for.
Guess just a couple of real quick questions, and I don't know whether Jim, you or anybody else knows, but did they do anything to modify that salt or anything? I know a couple meetings back you told us all the things that could be done. Did they do something to fix that?
No, no one on the board wanted anything done. They did absolutely nothing.
Okay. And did you, I know at the last meeting, I think might have been one that you missed or what or not, but I asked if we could double back and ask them if they could up the offer on the $40,000 or give us an explanation after we put money into it to put amber lights on it and all that kind of stuff, why it would be that kind of a hit. Did you have such a discussion?
I did ask them, and they felt that that was a fair price.
And how do they justify that? I mean, how many, do we know how many miles are on that?
I asked him a couple times. He didn't.
Okay. How, I mean, do you, and I'm not trying to beat on you, I'm just asking, do they have an explanation as to why we should take that kind of a hit?
It's a used truck, they can't sell it as new. A lot of how they make their money and a lot of the rebates and kickbacks, if you will, are on financing charges. They can't finance it as a new truck. Most contractors will not finance or cannot finance a used truck.
Okay.
As simple as that.
Do they feel any sense of responsibility for the salter that drags at the hind end of the truck?
Well, we discussed
Anything
that
for
at the
them?
last meeting,
I
and I gave
understand.
you, I think it was 9 options that they came up with, and everybody said no.
So my question is, do they feel any sense of responsibility for that?
Can't answer that.
Okay.
I don't feel there's anything wrong with it myself.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we purchase a 2020 F-350 and trade ours in.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
For discussion purposes?
Sure.
Okay, I'll second that, but I got a different perspective at this point. I'm not against doing that eventually. I think that's the end result. If we don't, Kathy can put it on some website or Craigslist is one option, and what, the other one is a municipality.
Yeah, I can send it to the municipalities.
See what we can get more for it than 45,000, and if we can up our, or lower our loss on it.
Well,
Sell it.
the motion is to purchase a truck, when the agenda item is a discussion of a 2018 3,500 Ram DPW dump truck. So I don't even know how we get to a discussion on the purchase of a truck when.
Well, I'm gonna allow that because we've got proposals for trade-in and everything. We're gonna allow that discussion. Go ahead.
To purchase a truck tonight?
We're gonna allow the discussion, okay?
Alrighty.
Okay,
So continue.
I believe we should try to minimize our loss here and see if we can get more money for that truck than being allowed. And there may be a contractor out there that would pay more, because obviously we got a bid here from a Dodge truck. Basically, it's similar, and it's a whole lot more money they're asking for a new Dodge truck than we're getting for this one. So I'm thinking there's maybe some room for getting some more of our money back out of this one.
I guess I don't have a problem trying other things first.
I don't think, and it's my own point of view, I don't think, I can't support the motion, and my concern is, and I've had that discussion with Kathy and everything, because I think to expend, we do not have money in the 2019 capital budget to buy a new dump truck for the DPW. Maybe it's legal or not. I don't like using money that wasn't used for other purposes to buy the truck. I'm not comfortable with that precedent at all. We discussed this a bit in workshop the other night. We put purchase of a new truck in on the capital plan for next year. I think that's a cleaner way to do it. It's just my point of view that I don't think we should act on trying to buy a new truck tonight unless we at least acknowledge how that money is going to be spent, which I think might properly require a budget amendment that would require 4 votes to do it. So I can't support the motion tonight.
If we don't get anything higher than the 45,000 selling it outright, what are our other options? Letting it sit again until we go to trade it in, or sell it back to Badger?
Well,
Those are kind of our only 2 options.
I guess those are all options. I mean, a motion, well, we need to vote for the motions on the floor, but I mean, a motion could be made to sell it if you can get X for it or whatever. I mean, go another place. We probably need to vote on the motion that is on the floor before we go anyplace else, would be my suggestion. What? Yeah, or you can withdraw the motion. Or
And the
we can vote
concern
on it.
is, of course, that it's not on the agenda. You can't buy the truck tonight, and I appreciate it, and you clarified it was for discussion purposes. But
It is.
you can't buy a truck tonight, it's not on the agenda.
And that's a whole nother issue, whether it should actually even have a budget amendment if we're gonna do it. We're not gonna dive into that tonight.
Well, I'll withdraw my motion, but I don't know what we're gonna do.
Okay,
The
well,
truck's
then,
gonna be sitting in our backyard again for another year.
let's talk about that next then. What are we gonna do, guys?
As I said, I think we ought to advertise it and try to sell it. I mean, this is prime time to maybe unload it. And like we had in the last month, we can't get a new truck till August anyway, if you did buy it today. There's really no reason to
Put it on the.
Get up to your microphone, please.
I could possibly put it on the auction site and then put a reserve of 45,000.
Oh, you
See if
definitely, you
anybody
gotta put in there.
Get it
that-
there.
We have, yeah.
Well, you gotta put in there that we reserve the right to reject or all
Well, they-
offers. I
they
mean, if we get an offer of 35,000, we're
No,
not selling the
but
truck. you
If
know.
we do, if I put in that we won't take anything less than 45,000 until it gets to that bid level above 45,000, it wouldn't go anywhere.
Does that work like eBay? Is that what you're talking about here with that municipal bidding thing? Is that?
No, it's Wisconsin surplus. So it's municipalities use it and the state uses
So
it.
they send their bids in just like eBay does basically, though, the same principle? And then when they get to the minimum or?
Kind of,
Yeah.
right. Although they have the ability to come and view and do all of that.
Is there
as
any
well.
other websites that work this way that you could put it on? I mean, the more the merrier in my book, the more exposure you're gonna get.
Can we put
I
it,
can
I
look at
mean,
that.
I see stuff in the Towns Association magazine occasionally. I mean, is that paid for advertising or
That's
not?
paid for.
So maybe that's not a prudent thing to do.
I can put it on Craigslist. I can set it right out here for all the guys that drive by with a sign on,
Put it on the town website for all I care.
you know.
My next question is, how long are these offers with these two dealers, the 40,000 for Badger and 45 for the trade-in value too? Because
I guess that's what I'm saying, Dave, is when you move this thing quickly, you know, the quicker the better. It ain't making his money sitting around.
no,
Either way.
Do we, and I don't know, Attorney Macy, whether you want to weigh in on this or not, but however we do this, do we have any obligation? I mean, it's just buy it as is. Do we have any obligation to tell people the issue there is with the salter on that thing, that basically go to raise the box on the thing and the thing drags on the ground? Do we have any obligation to tell people that, or is it just as is?
any contractor that'll look at it will notice.
They'll
those
figure it
issues.
out?
They'll notice
Okay.
issues.
Do you see any exposure to us on that? It's just as is?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think.
All right.
As,
Okay.
as this trustee said, they would know that, how it works with that
Okay.
setup.
All right.
Just make it very clear what the setup is.
Yeah.
So are we looking for a motion to direct Administrator Nicholas to look at all avenues to basically advertise this, and we can get somebody to pay $45,000 to it to consummate the sale? Is that the motion we're looking
I
for?
would make that motion, but I would say I'm not limiting it to 45,000.
Are you
At a
limiting it as a
minimum.
Minimum.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you, I didn't
Minimum.
understand that. Yeah.
All right, I'll second the motion. Discussion?
And, is it to advertise and then bring it back to the board to approve, or is the chairman authorized to
Anything
sell it?
My
Is the,
My
is
motion
the
would
clerk-
be if you get 45 or over, you
I mean-
can sell it without further authorization.
Thank you.
Is that, okay, discussion?
I'll accept that.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Discussion, possible action on workman snowplow contract. Kathy, is that you?
You've got it in your packet. We put in the language that you asked for. We fixed the dates and who's going to be secondary as discussed. I don't know if you have any questions on it.
Please look at paragraph 9 and make sure it meets with your intent, please. That was the one I was asked to write.
While you're reading through that, I guess I will just share with the board. I was contacted earlier in the week by Austin Workman of Workman Enterprises. I didn't reach out to him. He contacted me. I will just characterize the conversation as him having some angst, I guess, about the opt-out provision, if we can call that we put it in, that would permit the town of Waukesha to opt out. If you look at that language, he asked me if I could give him some idea of whether the town was seriously considering taking on additional equipment, staff, routes, or that type of thing, whether that's the direction we were headed. I didn't give him anything with any kind of assurance, because I wouldn't be authorized to do that. I simply told him that that wasn't something that was presently under discussion with the town board. That could change, but I believe my understanding, and I don't know whether you've had further communication, I think he indicated that they would sign the agreement, but he simply was a bit troubled by that.
Well, just as we, when we brought this forward at the last meeting, and they had asked for that termination, you all talked about, well, does he really want the 3-year contract and such. I think he's thinking the same thing. Well, they put in the termination. Do they really want the 3-year contract? I did not get the impression from our last board meeting that the board was considering reducing the or terminating early. It was just to put in a fail-safe if the vendor was not complying with his contract.
I can understand their concern. I mean, you know, they're buying the trucks, they're making the commitment for 3 years, and
right.
They don't want us to bail on them, and I understand that, so.
But I did not hear from the board at the last meeting that that's what you were considering. It was just, we put the termination in just in case they weren't doing their job, correct?
Yeah, but the part he's looking at is, and it is what it is, but the language that basically says, I mean, he apparently read this, and if you look at 9B under the termination, it's talking about the town's right to terminate or opt out. Says such early termination by the town is available only if the town concludes a contractor has failed to perform the terms of the agreement in any manner of the agreement, or the town decides to have the services of the agreement required the contractor to provide performed in-house by town employees. So I mean, he is skittish about that, and I understand it, and that's the way the agreement is. So I mean, at this point in time, guys, it's October 10th. Snow isn't far away. I mean, it's time to cut bait on this. The negotiation time is over.
So is the board willing to cross out, or the town decides to have the services in the agreement required by our board?
No, I'm saying sign the thing and present it to him for signature.
Is he willing to sign it the way it is?
We'll find out. It's my motion. I guess I don't know, does it make any difference whether we sign it first and offer it to him, or vice versa? Does it make any difference?
No.
So I guess my motion would be to authorize, I think it's set up for the town chairman's signature, authorize the signing of this contract immediately and presenting it to Workman Enterprises for their signature. And I so move.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Everybody understand the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Accounts payable, authorized payment of the bills, and you gave me that number someplace. And I put it where? I know you did. I know you did, and I should let you do it. All right, is there a motion to authorize the payment of the bills in the amount of?
I authorize the payment of the bills in the amount of $20,002.39.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes.
I move to
Adjournment
adjourn.
of the town board. I will
I'll second it.
second. All right. Supervisor Stigler, second by Supervisor German to adjourn at, what do we got? 9:53 PM. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.